And gentlemen, my name is James PFP. You can call me James. This is the Banjocast, pitchforks and flaming torches. I got a little bit of music to start off the night. I'll talk about what the music is later. This is called the New Century Suite. It's by a band, goes by the name of Global Funk. I dig. Right? I got headphones on so I can listen. Anything else I should need to tell you? There's a bunch of links in the description. I'm planning to watch a few Styx videos, but I was just noticing how the Hard Bastard began streaming moments ago. So maybe I'll take a peek at the Hard Bastard site today. But before I do, I'm going to let this run for a few moments whilst I do one little thing in the background. Global Funk, ladies and gentlemen. Not my band, not my band. I'll post a link in the description, or I'll stick a comment below, which will give you access to this full set by the band Global Funk. You can find it on archive.org. Real cool music. Good for the background. Messing with the audio here. Oh, and there's like 20 minutes of this left yet. Oh, wonderful. I'll get back to that later. I've got a use for that. Hey, I haven't popped out the chat interface here yet. Anyone wants to say something via chat? There is a chat on the live stream. Live chat is an integral part of my streaming experience. I wouldn't dream of doing it any other way. What do we got here? Hey, this is Styx Hexenhammer. Self-described minarchist. A bunch of his content was pretty good today, and I wanted to talk about some of it. I won't necessarily do it all at the beginning.
All right, everyone.
We'll start here.
Business Insider ran an article about how, you know, in Amazon's HQ, where it controls, I think, like 25% of a chunk of the downtown where it is, that it was like creepy because Amazon security follows people around on public streets and maybe like films them or something. Can I just say something here about Business Insider? This is total hypocrisy coming from you specifically. Because you have no problem with a big tech firm doing that sort of shit online, saying, you know, what people can or can't believe in, you know, going through their laundry to make sure they're loyal, manipulating everything, and so forth. You applaud these sorts of things. You think that you need more censorship and more of a sort of a police state internet on the big four especially. But then you have a problem when your journalist has to experience that in a real-life scenario, you suddenly have a problem with it. I find that very funny, and you've got to understand Amazon is arguably less abusive, maybe not towards its employees, but in the sense of certainly people's ability to put out a message to communicate. If you use like publishing on demand, like through Amazon, you can do pretty much anything. Yes, you can release pornographic works through Amazon if you choose to do so. I think they have a special section for that. You can release artful nudity. You can have a book that's nothing but swearing. You can make distasteful or obscene things, put them on POD and not have a problem with it. They're not going to censor you. You're going to have to list them 18+. Otherwise, though, it's not really a problem. Can you do that on a lot of the sites that you applaud for their censorship? Can you do that on Facebook? No, not really. You can't even have breastfeeding on Facebook. YouTube, a little bit more, maybe. You can have some of the, a small amount of the artful or scientific medical nudity is allowed. References to drugs merely, or non-use, but simply detailing them, that's kind of allowed now. Swearing, of course, they don't have a problem with. But, you know, obsessively obscene material, they take down. Offensive material certainly is messed with, even if no sane person would find it offensive.
Oh, maybe he
isn't. Twitter.
I thought maybe our bastard was streaming there, but it says that he uploaded. That's different than streaming. When did he start streaming? I see no hard bastard started streaming 5 hours ago. Weird, right? Weird.
Arguably now the most censored of all of them, with the exception of pornographic content, which apparently they have no problem with, which is extremely funny. They actually consider that lesser than being offensive. Like, oh, you said a racial slur, that's horrible, we're going to kick you off forever, but, you know, you posted a video of yourself getting screwed in the ass, that's okay for Twitter standards somehow. Like, you don't even have to mark it as anything. Like, anyone can see it, including minors. Somehow that's okay to Twitter, but you can't be offensive. I'm not exactly sure why. I think that Business Insider is really stretching, and this is what we see from the legacy media. They have a problem with things in real life, but then they sort of distance themselves from them online. Now, part of it is economic. Part of it is, of course, Business Insider competes with alt tech. It competes with alternative news, like on YouTube or a site like that. And so, of course, it wants to censor it. It wants to dumb down the competition's ability to compete with it. But they're never intellectually honest about that fact to anyone, of course, to their readers. And it's rather funny that they would have a problem with merely being monitored by Amazon on a street They have no problem with being monitored by a big tech site online, which happens all the time. When has Business Insider made an article saying it's kind of dystopian or kind of unnerving and spooky how much Google knows about them? Well, they never make that connection. Or the fact that people's minds can be manipulated by what tier the search results are on. Literally, you can manipulate someone's worldview by differentiating between different types of bias and making different categories and stuff in serving things out to people in a browsing feature. Of course you can. You can totally inform their reality. They're looking up a news story. Increasingly, people turn online for it. Or they look up a video about something, and you've manipulated the results that they see on their screen. That's probably going to change the way they think about the world. The very fact that there are priority creators on YouTube totally manipulates the worldview of people who use YouTube. I don't even think Google means to do that. I think it was just sort of a throwaway to the big players that give them a lot of ad revenue, but that's definitely what ends up happening, because you've precluded most of the alt media from being part of that category. Which means if you've got...
I have to be honest, too. I've been going through a short phase of my mind wants to do other things while I'm listening.
Current event.
So I'm going to stop for one moment here while I do this. I'm going to do this in the background. In the foreground, in the background, okay?
And you look it up and you're not already subscribed to someone in the alt media, and then the algorithm's being tailored to you, and so you probably do see like a Mall New, maybe a PJW or something alternative. Otherwise, under a more generic account where there's less data on you, you're probably going to be served CNN and NBC and Fox and all these things, Vice and Gawker. You're probably not going to see Paul Joseph Watson. You're probably not going to see me. You're probably not going to see like Razor Fist or Lionel Media or the Golden One weighing in on some sort of a event that's happened. You're not going to see Varg or Tara McCarthy. Now, you're not going to see H.A. Goodman. Hell, you're not even going to see like a Destiny or something like on the left. You're not even going to see H.A. Goodman. You're not going to see them. They're alt media. Yeah, ultimately. Yeah, by the way, I will say this, and people need to understand this too, because under my non-censorship banner, I can understand that there are people in the alt media who I totally disagree with, but they're still alt media. On that token, it's still, they're a cut above like a CNN or something. I have more respect for them. And also, I can actually engage them in conversation, whether it's amiable or not. And that's pretty good. Now, you can't really do that with CNN. The only time CNN's going to talk to someone like me is if it's talking down to us and saying, oh, ooh, bigot, something like that. They'll talk about Crowder is evil, Cernovich is evil, he's a conspiracy theorist, something like that. And that's how they interact with the public. By the way, they think this is a really good thing. They think that that wins them brownie points with the youth. I think we understand why their average listener is 67. Now, Business Insider has been full of it. But the thing is, it's actually, I don't even know why they use the term Business Insider for their brand anymore, because most of the news on there is not even business related. A lot of it's Trump now. Business Insider now has a penchant for clickbaiting.
News score, high score.
In all honesty, they're almost not
5 seconds off. Look at that.
To the clickbait. Which is probably why they're doing better than some of the partisan groups. I think that Business Insider is still increasing in its scope and its reach. Probably because they're willing to clickbait on the left and on the right. They're
a full 5 seconds, not even trying.
Partisan clickbaiters.
It's my day.
It's like if you wanted to snuff out fake news on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, these are the sort of sites that you would actually demote. You would be encouraging alt media as opposed to like a Business Insider. Here they are talking about Amazon.
Should have not been on there.
A guard was following me around, took pictures of me. Google does that every time you browse. Facebook does that every time you log into Facebook. Amazon knows what you look for. It tailors things to you. Your Apple or your Windows machine, unless telemetry and everything else is heavily disabled. On Windows 10, the default is Microsoft knows basically everything you're doing. It logs your strokes. It's literally like a virus. Like people 5 years ago, if you said keylogger, were like, oh no, those are scary. It's a virus that gives people access to your shit by recording your keystrokes and then sending it off to someone else who now can log into your accounts because they know where you're going and what you entered. Oh Jesus, and they got my correspondence. They gained access to my bank account. Oh no, my social security number. Now when you say keylogger, people are like, oh yeah, it's that thing in a Windows computer that tells Windows what you're doing. Isn't that a little dystopian? Nobody even had a problem with it. I dragged my heels on getting Windows 10 until I was good and ready. and absolutely sure that there were actually programs that would disable all of that. And there are ways to do that reliably. It's not a case of, I know, some of the statist bootlickers will say, if you don't have anything to hide, you shouldn't care. It's out of principle. The right to privacy, I think, extends to corporations that engage in communications technologies. In the future, I expect that this will be understood widely by the entire population, by the way.
You're probably right about that.
I'm optimistic long term, as I keep saying. 2-3 years from now, maybe. Maybe we'll finally defeat the zeitgeist of anti-liberty sentiment among big tech firms. The thing is, the big tech firms aren't helping themselves by doing this. Amazon doesn't help itself by doing such things. Every time Microsoft enables some feature, some update, some bit of telemetry or something that seems dystopian, it gets hammered. And people complain about it, and it affects their brand in a negative manner. Only the lack of viable alternatives for the average user who doesn't like Apple has really saved them up to this point. Now Linux is, or Linux, don't even know which it's pronounced, is quickly growing.
Linux.
Like I've seen a marked increase in the number of people using something other than Windows or Apple to look at my content, because I can see the stats for like Blogspot and YouTube. I can tell you, it's a huge surge of people. It's just like Mozilla is now falling off, and Opera and some of these other
starting to pick up.
Technologies are taking hold. Pale Moon probably. Waterfox. Mozilla took a hit because it was partnering with people that wanted to defeat the fake news. And of course, the big thing at the time was they took money from Soros. It turns out that wasn't true, but the rest of it was.
One more.
And I think that probably Mozilla loyalists put that out there in order to muddy the waters, in order to get people like to say that Soros was involved so they could cast him off as conspiracy theorists, when they pointed out correctly, yeah, indeed, Firefox is going to manipulate your search results. Why do you think I stopped using it other than the fact that it crashed randomly for no reason? Yeah. Pale Moon has its own problems. Trust me, they're more mild than the problems with Mozilla. I refuse to use Google Chrome, and all these others have their own quirks that I just don't like. Waterfox is okay, I guess. I use that briefly. Still have it on the computer, but I use Pale Moon. So yeah, Business Insider, why don't you ever chastise these companies for the same behavior in the world of the cyber, as maybe Donald Trump would say? Now, why don't you criticize them for that? Why is it only when your journalist gets tailed because they're taking, your journalist going through with a camera and a notepad and looking sketchy and being very observant of things? Yes, Amazon Security is going to consider you an interesting individual, and they're probably going to follow you to make sure you're not doing anything untoward. Like spying on Amazon, trying to grab proprietary software, or set a pipe bomb or something. Yeah, the fact that they're a journalist isn't going to compel them. You saying, "Oh, I'm from Business Insider," you think Amazon cares about you? Your little tiny firm, like they've never even heard of you, dude. And it's hilarious. It's like even a lot of pundits would have. You could probably put Bill O'Reilly on the Amazon campus, or like Glenn Beck. Or Rachel Maddow, they'd probably get tailed too if they had a camera and they were looking at too many things. Then they're going to say, well, it's probably just a tourist, but we're going to keep our eye on them. So it's not illegal. They can watch you if they want. If you haven't done anything wrong, you've got nothing to hide now. Business Insider, right? Isn't that what you told us all the time? Isn't that what the lame stream echoes over and over and over again? Yeah, I think it is. I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and it's funny to see you get mildly uncomfortable about such a thing. That's about all. Peace out.
Oh, wow. Look, that was a lucky guess there. That one. That was, again, a lucky guess. Maybe not. This one should be. Oh, see? It's stupid. I'm not bad at it. But I still make mistakes. This one is also linked in the description. And then there's one more. True libertarianism.
All right, everyone. Normally, I don't make videos this late in the day, but this one is more of a pressing issue, which is that Twitter, it's been confirmed now that they do indeed shadow ban people.
What?
Now, James O'Keefe, who is ever maligned by all of the Holts of the world, like, they really hate him because he actually does investigations, so they choose to fixate on, like, a couple times he was wrong, or he failed to do his little, like, Sting-style journalism to some group that he had an axe to grind with. They'll fixate on that, and they try to ignore all of the exposés he's done, like when Bob Creamer ended up resigning, or when that other dude who was working under Creamer, he was like fired because it was exposed that the DNC was hiring third-party groups in order to do dubiously legal shit. It wouldn't have been good for their public outreach. It wouldn't have been good for their PR in the social media era, so they tried not to discuss that. I had one person try to defend Bob Creamer, then they're like, oh, O'Keefe was found guilty of some misdemeanor or something. So I said, yeah, Bob Creamer was taken in and served several years on felony tax evasion. He was he was apparently like embezzling money or something. He went to federal prison for that, and these people, I guess they didn't understand that. But an engineer at Twitter, a senior engineer, has now confirmed they do indeed shadow ban. That's funny because if you mentioned that you thought Twitter did that a few months ago, it was considered a conspiracy theory. It was actually openly spoken of. No, Twitter's not shadow banning you. It doesn't do that. Now, I maintain there are sites about which that's claimed that I'm pretty sure it's not true. Like YouTube. Some people say YouTube shadow bans people. I don't actually think so. I've seen no evidence of it because, people say like, oh, testing, can you see this? I think I'm in shadow ban. I can see their comments just fine, although it may just be for me. Maybe it's like a partial shadow ban or something. I don't know. But indeed, Twitter does that. So basically, if you have an opinion Twitter doesn't like maybe your opinion is that Twitter is a bad company. Maybe your opinion is that Twitter censors things too much. And, maybe your opinion is, you like the candidate that Twitter didn't donate to or something, then you'll get shadow banned potentially. Now, this is funny because this comes less than 24 hours after I stated before in the context of like alt tech and stuff. Twitter, honestly, is the weakest of the bigger sort of social media era tech firms. Like, of all the intrinsic firms, if I had to predict which one would collapse out of existence or get hammered first, it would be Twitter.
Yeah.
Now, behold, again, it's a series of missteps that show a callous disregard for the user base. With Google, we've had situations in the past, like with Cosmic Panda, where they've got a track record where if something's really unpopular, they'll rescind it. Or at the very least, things are underwhelming. Like for instance, with Limited State, the worry that a lot of people had was it's going to be broadly applied. So far, while it's been unfairly applied in some cases, it doesn't look like it's a particularly broad program. It looks like that degree of censorship is relatively limited, which is a good thing. I still oppose using it at all, but it isn't as broad as some people worried. With Twitter, they'll come in and say, well, we're going to do, X, Y, and Z to stop some group of extremists or whatever, and it ends up being more broad. Now we find that they shadow ban people regularly, and then a second clip was like, apparently the plan is eventually to automate flagging and banning entirely so that nobody has to do anything. So it'll be a total police state Twitter. It won't be worth using the platform. Mainly, when I think of it this way, Twitter ultimately as a communication tool is the quickest and most efficient, but it doesn't actually host much of its own sort of bulk. It's not like YouTube where you have channels or Facebook where you have profiles in the standard sense. It's a little bit different. It's sort of like a site that's also a messaging app, like a weird fusion between the two. And that has advantages as far as efficiency. But as far as actually driving content that's going to gain the site money, it seems to lag behind. And again, they keep making these mistakes. It's not a mistake to shadow ban people. It's a mistake to be caught out shadow banning people. I think Reddit does that as well. Now, although I think they announced it ahead of time that actually happened. Like, they finally just said, yeah, we do that. Twitter didn't want this, I assure you, going public. I wouldn't be surprised if they attempt to suppress the content of people who actually mention it. Like, when I post this video, maybe it doesn't reach everyone, or maybe it's not publicly visible to as many people outside of being retweeted or something. That would be funny. Excuse me. The Red Bull's starting to wear off a little bit, so a little bit lower energy this time, but don't worry, I'll do just fine. But no, Twitter, the engineer confirms this. There's no reason to disbelieve it. It wouldn't make sense for them to say, oh yeah, we shadow ban people like it's common. It's, it's even a little bit alarming. We do it all the time. Yeah, there wouldn't be really a reason for some sort of engineer there to deny that actually was taking place. So I'm going to just assume that it's true, number one. Twitter, maybe they'll come out and deny it or something. Oh, no, we don't actually. Or yeah, we did it for a while, but don't worry, we stopped. We don't do it anymore. And this just verifies what people have said, which is, hey, a lot of times things don't reach anybody. Some hot, juicy take that should be quite popular. All of a sudden, this post didn't reach anybody. I wonder why. It must be a shadow ban. All the legacy media and sort of like establishment types said, no, you're crazy. Take off the tinfoil hat. it actually does happen. Look, big tech controls an inordinate proportion of all human communication, which means that a lot of people want to throw money at them to take care of their problems. If some company, if Monsanto is tired of being criticized on Twitter, maybe they throw some money there and get some people suppressed that are very vocal and popular opponents of Monsanto. Just sort of human nature. It's money. If they think that they can invest a little bit, bribe Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and the payoff is larger than what they had to pay, or they can blackmail somebody or whatever, they're going to do that because it's in their best self-interest to do so. It's just the way that human beings operate. And in collectives, a company, run as it is by a handful of people that make the actual decisions, the same thing inevitably will happen. And they're going to hire people who have no problem with it either.
Making the same
Although I
mistakes
have
here,
no doubt that there are a few mavericks
a game
within
of
the company
logic, which is easy
like
to
that,
lose.
that occasionally don't do their job. They're like, oh, whoops, I was supposed to limit this tweet, but it slipped through. Yeah, I wonder why.
How is your week going, Hilljack? Is it busy?
Or something. Like someone sabotaging. They're like on the last day of work. They're like, aha, fuck this. It was like sort of like that employee who banned Trump briefly there. I'm sure that that happens on a lower level occasionally too. That's about all. Peace out.
Uh-oh. This isn't going to be easy. I got to stop and pause to change the video over. I might as well just bork this one fast. But I was after winning the last time I played this, so. Sticks, pieces of 8. Look at this. I didn't put the link for that one in there. This is the next one I'll plan to watch.
All right, everyone, it's time to talk about libertarianism as it involves the concept, some people think that it does, of forced diversity or open borders. The movement of people in a completely free manner from sovereign state to sovereign state, or the dissolution of the very concept of sovereign states. As well as the concept that the social Marxism in the post-Obama era here and, basically post-80s in Western Europe has begun to degrade the fabric of civic culture. And it's a violation of the NAP. This is why I say, for my part, as someone, I mean, I can use the term libertarian or classical liberal to describe myself, but at this point, as far as the Libertarian Party goes, it's like they've gone off into la-la land further than the ANCAPs. It was a political strategy, by the way. They were trying to gobble up Bernie bro votes. Their strategy was, hey, a few million extra people will vote for us, and it did work. If we wine and dine and court the people that were disenfranchised by Clinton being rigged into the DNC primaries as the person to go up against Donald Trump. It worked, and then it destroyed the LP's talking points. They're still having issues right now figuring out what the hell they stand for. They haven't decided whether to be primarily an ANCAP open borders party or a limited government monarchist party. Whether they want to appeal just to the youth or whether they want to appeal to sane people. I guess they have to make that distinction.
Interesting distinction.
But I'm not an open borders libertarian because I'm intelligent. I'm intelligent enough to understand that a culture can't survive such a thing. It doesn't matter. Usually the excuse used is, yeah, but we've got a big population, so it's not like, Tonga. If Tonga took in thousands of people, maybe it gets displaced, but we've got hundreds of millions of people, so it's not a threat.
This gets into the discussion that myself and others are having on my stream, whatever happens on this channel, which is he said that you can't have the open borders, your culture can't survive having open borders. I look at that and I say, hang on, I recognize the border must exist to differentiate between culture number 1 and culture number 2. I recognize the border. Don't tell me that you can't permeate the border. The line allows you to cross it. You can't close it off entirely, and you can't open it up entirely. You can't just get rid of the border. That I recognize. Yes, borders, language, culture is about cults, really. So I find it funny to think that he comes down on a hard one way or the other when he recognizes, I think, that there's a gray area where the border exists.
Taken to its logical extreme, if you were to form a truly anarchic borderless state, it would be possible for another nation to deliberately organize the movement of people in massive numbers into your state, gaining immediate citizenship, and then voting out the libertarian policies that allowed them to do that, solidifying themselves forever.
Basically, tyrannous majority is what he's afraid of.
And it would become the libertarians, if they support the concept of open borders, don't see how that's abusive, then they wouldn't be able to do anything to fight back. they would end up being suppressed by the state that had been created by other groups. Like,
the surest defense against it, in my mind, is to make sure that everyone is educated clearly as to what it is that libertarians think the way they do, or if that's what forms the border, if that's what forms the society, the culture, then that's going to be an understanding which is not that easily overturned by merely trying to outpopulate.
Literally a communist movement or something. It could happen. China's got the most population in the world. It's a communist state. All they'd have to do is find 200 million people willing to go and cross over into the open borders U.S. That's all they would have to do. I'm sure. I can hear the screeching right now of that's a sci-fi idea. Not this time from the alt-right that probably...
Proxy, well, he was just assuming that 200 million Chinese would get into the States somehow. So proxy immigration, yeah. They'd have to come in through another country. It had to be Mexico, it had to be Canada, right?
Probably agrees with the basic summation, but rather from maybe the ANCAP groups, which is really funny. Libertarianism can't survive that because of demographics. It's a simple truth. Especially, it might not have been a problem early on.
I don't believe him when he says that, but we'll see. We'll see what he's trying to say.
In maybe U.S. history, when people say, we're a nation of immigrants. Yes, we were a nation of immigrants. There was no welfare state. Extremely low population density, and the people primarily coming here are people disaffected by authoritarianism.
That's true. I'm going to go with him on this one. I think that people that immigrated to the North Americas, or to the Americas and North America in particular, were getting away from dumb European wars a lot of the time.
Literally, the libertarians of Europe became coming over here along with a few rich investors that said, well, no, I'm going to make a plantation or something and hire other people. That's basically how the early U.S. formed. Homestead Act era.
Hire other people. Okay.
Our density is still terribly low. Half of the country's land area is barely settled other than a few trading posts and a few shit shacks where some hermits go kill muskrats out in the rivers or something. That was half the U.S. at that time. We had barely linked up coasts. Railroads come along. They say, oh, okay, well, we're going to build railroads and open up the West, and we'll settle these areas. And
who said that? What's the they that said we're going to build railroads? Was it the population? Was it the libertarians, or was it the industrialists?
Bunch of small towns spring up. Some do.
Was it the same industrialists who ended up owning the railroad that owned a lot of the... Well, how does this work? In order to avoid railroad shipping costs, it was better to own the railroad, right?
Well, some don't do well. Oil's found here, and gold's found there, and coal is found there. Things are extracted. The United States becomes wealthy. We don't have any empty land area anymore to do that in other than national parks. Oddly enough, then Trump opens up some of that land for development, and the entire left that's screeching about these things has a big problem with it. What the fuck do you think it is to absorb excess population?
I'd be interested to see what population density is across the entire United States, state by state, because I think Styx's point is actually incorrect here. There's no need to open up more open land except for large industrial concerns who are capable and eager to develop them, and not for putting higher population density into what is currently, or what used to be, national parks or protected areas. It's not for population purposes.
In certain areas that are flagging off and there's nowhere else for people to go. Build a few more little towns, at least temporarily stave off the problem. Secondly, to the idea of forced diversity, some people, some libertarians, seem to have no fundamental problem with the idea that social justice warriors would use private companies, for instance, in communications tech, to suppress people who disagree with them. Is that not just the privatization of abuse when that company is co-opted by government? The company is subject to the government, number one. It's coerced by government, foreign governments or domestic, number two. I would think it'd be even worse if it's a foreign government like Merkel's Germany telling a U.S. firm to stamp down on U.S. speech. I would think that would be a grave concern to an actual libertarian. Apparently it's not to some people. They're like, oh yeah, but it's a private company. They can do what they want. Okay, so they're coerced into it. Their NAP is violated. You don't see that as a problem either. Broadly speaking, the NAP exists at the national level too. Because if a person is within a nation, they're like, well, I want liberty, I want individualism, I want to be left alone. They have the right as well to use the legal means to safeguard the continuance of that system, or it is unstable. It will collapse. It will go the way of the dinosaur, and then the very concept of libertarianism goes out the window. This is, oddly enough, the biggest way in which I overlap with the alt-right. The biggest thing that they have said that I have heard them say anyway, in years, that I absolutely agree with is that fact. Not on a racial basis necessarily. It could be a cultural basis, it could be a religious basis, whatever. The culture, though, undergoes an overthrow. The concept of liberty, as it's generally held, will ironically enough be snuffed out by the excess use of that in the government's function. This is why I'm not an ANCAP, I'm a monarchist. I believe in constraining government. I want to end the drug war. It's unhelpful. I don't want proxy.
Again, I'm with him here. I am a monarchist. I believe in the constraint of government itself, not the other way around. Not constraint of the population. Not even necessarily the constraint of the corporations or other business interests, but constraint of the government itself. The problem with corporations I see is that they're given special status as if they were individuals, which I don't think makes sense either. It's a form of collectivism, in other words, which we don't have a problem with. When in every other case that you start saying, or you start suggesting a collective, some kind of collective solution, people start to freak out and call you communist.
Wars. I don't want world war mongering a la maybe John McCain or a Hillary Clinton. Oh, bomb, bomb, bomb. Iran says McCain. Haha, we came, we saw, he died. He, says Hillary Clinton. I'm against all that. We're excessively taxed. We are excessively regulated. The very idea of a property tax negates the very concept of capitalism where it's present. We got all sorts of problems. But fundamentally, an absence of government doesn't really solve any of those things. You'll end up with corporations coming in, basically doing the same thing, and then you won't even have the application of the Constitution to give you a reason to defend yourselves. A lot of people still think the Constitution gives them rights. So long as that's the case, and they don't understand that they're natural rights that are simply being enumerated, you better hope that there's some remnant of state there instead of corporate control. Otherwise, everyone will get abused. It would be worse. Oddly enough, it would be worse than the system we have now. End up with a really weird totalitarian state at that point. It'd be like a Brave New World, maybe a little bit, or a 1984.
Or maybe Handmaid's Tale, let's be honest.
Fusion, where it's a diesel punk world, total dystopia. And breathe in those cold, it'll be like Metropolis or something like that.
Metropolis, maybe that's what he meant.
That's what it would begin looking like. It'd be
Metropolis as in Fritz Lang.
a fairly unpleasant world. Okay, maybe some cool style and you know, cinema would be really good, but other than that, nah, not a lot of reasons actually to live there.
Hill Jack, that's a real interesting movie. This gets back into the me and you talking about film criticism or film study. Like, you did it in school, I did it when I got to university. If you've never seen Metropolis, Fritz Lang, there's been multiple. There is no original copy of this movie left because it got released in Germany around about the time that the Weimar Republic fell in favor of, well, it didn't fall, but the Weimar Republic ceased to exist in favor of National Socialism. So one of the first casualties in art of National Socialism was the movie Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which had one or two characters which the National Socialists didn't really like. They didn't have a problem with the whole movie. They didn't have a problem with hardly any of the movie, but there were one or two aspects which were cut out of the movie from then on. You can still see versions of the film which have been restored, or best guessed restored, because we have extant scripts or we have more than one film copy of the thing. But that's a real interesting movie, Metropolis.
Or maybe. You know, things can be more efficient than brass piping, because that's what they thought that things would look like back then. I got it kind of right on the robot, though, if you actually compare the what's it called, Maschinenmensch to modern robotics. There's a little bit of overlap there. It's almost a little bit creepy, considering that was almost 100 years ago. I think it was a 20s era movie, if I remember correctly.
Fritz Lang, yeah.
But no, true libertarianism cannot weather open borders. It can weather immigration. There's no problem there. But if the borders are thrown open a la Obama, then it destroys it. Here's the problem. The Democratic Party in the United States doesn't care about third world. They don't care about foreigners. They don't care about any of these people. They just don't care. But they are willing to gobble
kind of like a no true Scotsman fallacy being played out here. The true libertarianism cannot support open borders. I'm not entirely sure about that. Whether this is actually defensible in the end. There must be a way of arguing around it, is what I think.
Up extra votes by pretending to.
The argue around, and from my point of view, it's to call this into question. This open borders thing doesn't mean there is no border. Doesn't mean there is no border control. But to allow there to be absolutely no control on the border. So what he's saying is that his minarchist position is that there should be some border control.
Care. Because they like to manipulate people to do this. The plan overall, and all along, if we look at the leaked memo we've seen in the last few days, the overall plan was to admit a bunch of people, defer action, say that it's temporary, and long-term it was meant to be backdoor amnesty, to create a new block of several million new voters that would be...
And libertarian and forced diversity. Diversity itself can be survived, but forcing diversity is a guaranteed failure. That way. I agree with that.
Overwhelmingly Democratic. If these people only knew that the Democratic Party saw them as nothing more than political pawns, I have a feeling that wouldn't be the case. But the real problem is this. If the Democrats were to pull that once and gain a permanent voting bloc, it might not be a problem, oddly enough. But the fact is, second and third generation immigrants become less and less liberal, less and less Democrat-friendly, and more friendly towards conservatism. Well, that's a little bit of a problem now, isn't it? And we see that over time, if immigration slows, this country is going to experience not a blue wave, but a red wave. Just speaking in terms of statistical situation there, that will happen. The blueness of the Southwest that's encroaching right now will actually begin to recede. It'll go in the other direction. You could see it won't be blue Texas, it'll be red New Mexico at that point. I hope people realize.
There's another reason why I think immigrants, second and third generation family members of recent immigrants. This is why they turn Republican. They begin to amass property, as well as the community or cultural linkages to the place that they're living.
Realize that it just
property rights alone is essentially what establishes the republic.
Reversal of fortune. It's intergenerational in nature, and it will happen. It'll be delayed a bit. It'll wait like 10-15 years. You'll begin to see the effects. So don't worry too much, I would say, to people that are like, oh, civic is bad and libertarianism is cocked or something. Okay, just watch it, see if my prediction's true. Just see. The Democrats, therefore, they have to do it multiple times.
Notice too, I say property, not money.
They can't just do it once, they have to do it every generation. So they have to do it with the Reagan administration, they have to do it prior to that with the end and this was pointed out, the immigration system as it was prior to the 60s, they had to do it in the 2000s, now they're trying to do it now. They would love in the next few years to do it again, for a fourth time, actually. They may not get the chance to actually do that, which is good. It's good for the nation for them not to succeed at that. But that's definitely what they want, because they have to. They need to keep refreshing that same voting block, and they get to use it as a wedge issue, because what happens is if a Democrat's in charge, they try to get amnesty. If there's any resistance, they try to browbeat their opponents, whether it's the Republicans in Congress or Republican president, by saying, oh, you're evil, wicked, and mean because you don't want people to be able to stay here. But the thing is, it was always a ploy. It was a ruse to begin with, and people need to wake up to that. And the concept of forced, like multiculturalism, as opposed to multi-ethnic. I've said before, a multi-ethnic state can function in a stable manner, but a multicultural state cannot. It is impossible. We are not a...
It's not true. It's not true, man. How did Rome manage to do it? I'll tell you how a multicultural state manages to do it. It insists on secular order. And then you have to juggle these competing groups for a long period of time. And in the case of ancient Rome, Republican Rome ceased at the point of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar stopped the Republic in favor of the imperial part of Rome. So they carried over many of the same understandings, probably even the same rights, from the Republic to the imperial, but it wasn't the same.
Salad bowl. No sane person ever wanted the United States to be a salad bowl. The very idea is anathema to the founding of the United States.
What?
The idea was to have one American culture, not multiple American cultures. Subculture's fine. You know, you have Italian-American neighborhoods. There's going to be Italian flags and Italian restaurants and stuff. Nobody really has a problem with that. Or here's the
Just the funny thing is, this is exactly what they do have a problem with, except they don't have a problem with it according to him.
enclave in Boston where you're going to get all sorts of Irish cooking and stuff like that. That's fine. Nobody cares. But to have a competing culture, a multicultural system, breaks down the civic fabric of that nation as well. I would say in such a situation, that's not a good way to
As I say again, I think the culture in the United States was ideally imagined to be secular,
promulgate liberty.
which gets it away from religious or national cultures that form the basis of the citizenry.
It's really not, because there'll be less cooperation between groups of people. People who otherwise wouldn't be at each other's throats will be. And they'll be definitely used as political wedge issues by whatever corporatized parties happen to exist at the time. The LP, by the way, they're fooling themselves if they think they can ever take control of the country with the kind of platform they have now in our current forced diversity style situation. No, we're going to censor people with unpopular opinions. You get blacklisted from ever working again at any place of employ because, you know, we doxed you and you have out there beliefs, so, you know, good luck getting a job. You might as well be homeless.
I'd be wrong how? For saying that it's a secular system? I think that's why it doesn't make... I recognize that it says under God in some places of the Constitution or various documents, but that doesn't mean it isn't secular. It means that there is no preference given to any given God.
It's abusive.
I
That's
might be
exactly
wrong.
what it is.
I might
And
well
see
be wrong.
Libertarians that don't seem to have a problem.
I've been wrong
with
many
this, 'cause
times,
it's not
many
the
a time in my
government
life.
doing it. Would you be okay with a private company leaking the personal messages of all users or something? Like if Twitter decided, oh, yo, Gary Johnson's private messages, yeah, we can leak them. Would you defend that and say, well, it's a private corporation, they can do what they want? Now, I don't think that you'd like it very much. Or what about yours? Or if it decided, hey, discussing libertarianism is now banned internet-wide, you know, the domain registrar starts taking down any site that mentions it. Would you think that that was just, oh, it's a private corporation, that's okay. The free market will fix it, you know, despite the fact that there's an absence of a free market in the tech world. It'll be fine. It'll be just...
See, he's wrong about that. There is no absence of a free market in the tech world. There is extra and added incentive for us to avail ourselves of commercial product when in fact the free market in the tech world is open source. And we pretend, and we talked to one, he was talking about Linux earlier. We pretend that the open source model is somehow not up to the task of like toeing to toeing with the commercial developments in the tech world. And the truth of the matter is, a third of the internet runs on the open source. At least a third of the internet is running because of open source work, not because of commercial development.
Andy, no, I don't think that you'd like it very much. I think that you would vigorously oppose it, and then probably you'd come around to what I'm saying, which is that privatization of abuse is the same thing, and enforcing sort of the social justice warrior mentality violates the NAP. And open borders will destroy a libertarian state, even if it's formed. That's about all.
Interesting. Interesting stuff, Sticks. Interesting stuff. Got a thumbs up that last one.
All right, everyone. I promised that I would make a video on this subject and actually create sort of a visual representation of my own sort of view of politics. And part of it is when you're trying to visually represent something within 2 or 3D space, you have to artificially limit sort of the things that you consider important.
Oh, wow. So he's now doing the same kind of things that I was doing a month ago. Interesting.
And it can become actually problematic, really, to actually...
He doesn't do a lot of diagrams, and this is what I think, and this is my map.
Map things out in a way that makes sense.
Oh, wow. He was going to say map?
And won't itself almost be a political statement. It's like horseshoe theory. Horseshoe theory proponent says, oh, here's liberty, and then authoritarianism, things curve in, and up here you get both the commies and the alt-right, or like the Nazis or something.
Yeah, they're talking about horseshoe theory. Horseshoe theory's been ringing the bells all week. Horseshoe theory. But they don't talk about, and I'm not trying to say horseshoe theory is real, but they don't talk about ring species, which is the same dynamic. If you have a species which has gone, like for example, the common seagull has stretched itself the entire way around the northern hemisphere of the planet. And on the two ends of the various subspecies of seagull, they can't interbreed anymore. They're effectively two separate subspecies by that end because they cannot interbreed with one another, but all other stages in between them can interbreed. So if something was to happen to get rid of all of the population of seagulls on the other side of the planet, extinction event, a rock hits from space and just wipes them out. The two ends of the species which weren't affected would now be two separate gull subspecies and not able to interbreed with one another.
Like they're the same thing. And that's, of course, an age-old sort of way of looking at it. Before, you also have ring theory in a way, that they literally meet. They're not a
ring species, but even if they do meet, doesn't mean that they stay connected.
Horseshoe, they quite literally connect. And then you have sort of the outmoded style, a linear sort of thing going on before that, where they're like, oh, well, you know, you've got right and then left.
The funny thing is that when I start talking about ring species, I'm not talking about theory. I'm not even talking about theory. I'm talking about genetics. I'm not talking about culture. I'm talking about genetics. Separate fucking topic.
The Nazis here, the commies there. Here's various grades of whether they're more far right or far left or somewhere in the middle. Sort of the false centrism, because of course that can be authoritarian too. The convention or the establishment often is the most authoritarian.
Tyrannous majority.
What is outside tends to be more libertarian in many ways. So I made a little diagram. Apologies for it not being necessarily greatly refined. Like I could have done something digitally and printed it out maybe, but I'm not going to bother. This is cone theory. This is the way that I look at it. I think hopefully I'll be able to explain it. It should make some sense. Oddly enough, I think that sometimes my picture on here is reversed, or it used to be at least, maybe with my old camera, and so I'm not exactly sure, but you can actually read this, which is great. Here we've got anarchy. Anarchism is simply the absence of any sort of, it's not a state, there's no tribal council, it's not like an oligarchy, there's no king, anything like that. People are basically disorganized to the maximum possible level. Now, anarchism doesn't ever actually exist. It's sort of...
People are disorganized. I don't follow that anarchy means disorganization. I really don't. What stops anarchists from arriving at some form of organization totally organically on their own? What stops them?
Sort of like
only the assertions of people that want it to be a certain way.
Looking at an unstable molecule that you can create in a lab and decays into nothingness like 10 milliseconds later. You're not actually going to find any actual examples of true anarchism, including in the primitive world. It simply can't exist. It's too unstable. Stability, in a way, tends to increase short-term, situationally, the further you move towards authority on the spectrum. Spectrum is a very funny term.
See, I don't think that's the truth. I think stability tends to increase the more accesses that, or more points of contact you actually have. So if you have a single point of contact, like a rope hanging from a beam or a tree branch or something, there's very little stability, but it is more than if the rope is not hanging on anything whatsoever. And if you have 2 points of contact, the rope is even more stable. And if you have 3 points of contact, the rope will be stable enough to be totally considered stable. You could use it as a platform of some kind. You could put a glass of water on it and it wouldn't tip over. You know?
I'm sure to use. It becomes less stable situationally back here. Long term, what I've noticed...
I guess that's what he's saying, Hilljack, that exactly the individual is anarchy at its most ideal and refined, and then you have the smaller circles followed by larger and larger circles which represent order. I do follow the cone theory in that sense.
Honestly, is that that's inverted. That what happens is, as long as you have a benevolent, sensible, sane authority, things can go along fine. Unfortunately, authority tends to quickly corrupt itself. The more powerful it is, the more quickly it does that. So you have potentially an oscillation within a culture, not between anarchism and full totalitarianism, but certainly somewhere along the gradient. This ring then represents roughly libertarianism, where I would be as a monarchist. I'm not an anarchist. I believe in
attempting to stay towards the top part of the... Okay, I follow.
Having governance. But at the same time, I believe that governance must of necessity be restrained. The more you restrain it, the slower the oscillation is, and at least in that direction towards authoritarianism. The hope is that you can maximize liberty for a maximum amount of time, regardless, of course, eventually you do get decadence of one sort or another. You could even get like conquest or something. There are some arguments to be made situationally for authoritarianism. The problem is no one's ever figured out a way to structure it properly to be an interim situation to prevent instability.
True, Lord of the Flies, yes. They had a system of order. What I'm trying to say is that anarchy is the absence of the ruler, not necessarily rules. And it doesn't mean that there won't be something like order which can arise within it. Anarchy doesn't prevent a tree from growing. I mean, the anarchy of nature. There is some form of order intrinsic to the tree, which provides it order, and yet it doesn't insist on its order for everything else around it. Other trees, like it, will follow that order. That's the only order that matters to the tree, and there's no rulers required for the tree to form a forest or anything else. If a human gets involved with the tree, the old growth forest becomes a tree farm. That's a whole other type of tree or order than what the tree naturally would show. That's what I'm saying. The anarchy in the sense that no rulers are required for the tree and the forest. Whereas human idea of order is the archon, is where the arc comes from.
Thus returning you to the proper pole of liberty thereafter. Nobody's figured out a way to do that, or so it seems. The further you get...
Anarchy and human nature will get nasty, true, because there'll be different ideas, for example, whose property right things are. Whose right is this? If a person, in anarchy, a person who is jealous would probably be able to end the problem of jealousy by simply shooting the thing which is causing them jealousy, or that's the best way I could put it, thinking quickly, but yeah, the thing which causes jealousy. Let's suppose a man has a wife, and another man gets involved with his wife. So he decides to deal with the jealousy he has. In an anarchist situation, shooting the man or the wife would be an option. In a highly ordered society, that probably would not be an option. There might even be rules to say, even if you do find someone else with your wife, you're not necessarily justified to shoot them because of jealousy. Divorce her. I do believe in evolution. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? I've got very little reason to not believe in evolution, given the evidence of my own senses.
Towards authoritarianism, the importance here, things become more divergent, and what that represents to me is here you've got various poles. You would have oligarchy ruled by group.
I do agree with that too.
Monarchy.
Divergence is almost guaranteed because of the nature of the planet.
By a sort of bred into...
Anarchy, in other words, causes divergence.
To power individual, a royal figure. Tyranny of the sort of a dictatorship, not necessarily they were born into the position, but they rose to it, maybe through military means, maybe they were voted in, took up absolute power. You would also have an authoritarian democracy, oddly, here. You'd have a situation where there's no constraint on democratic power. You would literally have the...
Exactly. We've been through anarchy, and here we are. And so now the question becomes, do we require an over-controlling bureaucratic form of government, or should we be aspiring, as Styx suggests, towards the minimal amount of government to get the highest amount of freedom, as if we were, so that we can benefit from the natural benefits of anarchy? Because there are naturally good aspects of anarchy, the same as there are naturally undesirable ones.
Tyranny of the majority, one of the wisest things to constrain within a government. You've got theocracy ruled by a church or a religious body of some sort, some wise council of elders. These poles, when they develop, when they become more authoritarian in form, the reason why this is a cone is that there is then more divergence. There's less divergence here. At this point, down here, any pole of power that does come into existence lacks the capability to suppress any other pole. Things can balance one another out. Things can be stable. As you move ahead towards authoritarianism, again, whether it's statist in nature, ruled by the state in an arbitrary manner, or a council, a dictator, whatever it happens to be, it doesn't really matter. That pole, because it is now more potentially abusive, probably more corrupt, and probably more self-serving, will seek to suppress any of the others. So now there's divergence going on. And so these different forms of governance, the tendencies of them, in a milder manner, can all coexist in a libertarian state. For instance, You can have a libertarian state where you have some great charismatic figurehead, but they're constrained. And so that charismatic figurehead might find themselves having to negotiate with, at odds with, discussing things with a religious body, sort of that sub-theocratic tenet. A democrat.
It's true. Constitutional conservatism, nothing better yet conceived. It's true. There is nothing better yet conceived, but I also think we're on the brink of being able to conceive things which are better. Partly because ideas like this are well past their time to be discussed openly or with some kind of understanding. And that's what Styx was saying in the previous videos. There's a reason for libertarianism to be targeted at this moment in time as a topic to be linked with Nazis. That makes absolutely no fucking sense.
Elected,
but that's how they don't want to avoid, or that's how they don't want to deal with this particular problem. We're going to have to tar them all as Nazis.
Statist style body, a legislative body, you could say, which nonetheless is also constrained. It could end up negotiating with anything under the sun. And corporatism, corporate totalitarianism, a form of fascism, would definitely be over here. Its less relevant aspect, its weaker and more stable aspect, though, is simply, hey, we've got skin in the game, we're part of what has become the state itself, part of the individuals and collectives that comprise it, we have a seat at the table. And so you have sort of a council down here which actually crosses between aspects of the political spectrum, none of which are capable of gaining ultimate power, suppressing the others, and abusing things. When, though, you give too much power to one of these poles, it will seek to diverge. It becomes less stable. It almost becomes like a nuclear reaction. It's
fission. It's fission. This is nothing I haven't said in my Cult 101 discussions in the last month and a half. You can fuse or it can bang apart, the fission. It has a choice, either to consolidate and become a bunch of interior hierarchical groupings, or it'll go bang. Yeah, I agree.
To get away from other things. Whereas down at the bottom...
And the tendency to go bang is not due to anarchy, but due to chaos. The reaction of imposing order, the result, I should say, of imposing order on reality due to chaos, is that it's very, very sensitive to the smallest kind of amount of chaos within the highly organized system. That's what causes a bang.
Unfortunately, you also have the same tendency with anarchism because it decays away. Unfortunately, if you ever attempt full anarchy, what ends up tending to happen is very quickly you get one of the other authoritarian variants. It very, very quickly shoots right up that cone, becomes extremely totalitarian, collapses itself.
Warlords, warlords and feudal lords and the like, that's where they come from.
Next time, hopefully, you break the cycle of revolution and counter-revolution and end up with a system which is functional. That is, you're not attempting full anarchism, you're not attempting full-on totalitarianism. I would say also, opportunists tend to try to get people to ignore the vast bulk of volume within the cone between anarchism and their chosen realm of authoritarianism. So an oligarchic group, a group that wants a sort of council-run nation, is going to argue for it and argue that anybody who disagrees is actually an anarchist or they're stupid, they're going to be abusive. That's because that competing pole of power is inevitably going to try to shove the others aside. That means you can get a situation where two groups that are, on the horseshoe theory, you'd just say they were close together. What I would say is they're actually drifting further apart in a way. They're seeking to destroy the other poles of power. It's actually an inversion almost of horseshoe theory. So that's sort of the way I've come to see things. That's why I'm a libertarian. That's why I'm a constitutionalist. I want to constrain things. I don't argue for the absence of a state, because that's mob rule. That doesn't work. Anarchism can never actually exist. Wherever two or more people are gathered, there will be a master-servant style relationship in some form.
Whenever two or more people are gathered, 2 or 3 are gathered together in someone's name, there'll be a master-servant relationship. It's
possible for them to be very friendly with one another, but at least situationally, someone is going to be ruling. At least, the best hunter, unless that society cares if it doesn't care if it dies out at all, the best hunter is the one that's leading ultimately during the hunting party. the dude who's the best at fighting, he's ultimately going to be the de facto leader if you're fighting another tribe. The person who's the best at making pottery is the de facto head of making pottery, is teaching other people, imparting, and thus has an aspect of control. There's an aspect of the ability, if you differentiate from that, you're going to be a pariah potentially. Even in a very, very liberty-loving society, you're going to have de facto leadership. So anarchism cannot work. What I argue is that total authoritarianism also cannot work. The debate then lies between where on the spectrum between them is the proper place, how does it remain there, how is it constrained? Sort of the, is there supremacy of the individual or supremacy of a collective, and what collective that is. But as long as you establish, and this is why I argue for libertarianism predominantly, not...
I'm not entirely convinced by the amount of... The number of times I've heard the word collective thrown around lately. I don't see the link here right now, but there was a link in the previous video over here on the sidebar to a Richard Spencer video accusing Sargon of being retreating to full-on collectivism. This is a fine thing to assert, but it's not easy to prove it. And the fact of the matter is that collectivism is really the thing which is really, to me, it's the thing which is ugly about communism. Communism, ideally, is not that offensive. And if you tell me, well, you look at the way communism has always been applied in the real world, it's never really worked, and it's caused nothing but millions and millions of deaths worldwide, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, you're correct. It's collectivism which killed those people, not communism per se. I'm not trying to say they're not guilty. I am trying to say the ideal which everyone is popularly convinced by masks the nature of the collectivism behind it, which literally collects things like property together for redistribution to only a very, small number of elites within the collective, if you want to call it that.
100%, that term doesn't 100% apply anyway. The problem is that if you seek to be more towards the authoritarian end, if you are a collective, it's not horseshoe theory, but that pole that you've created to retain stability actually can destroy it in the form of attempting to fight off other poles that may from time to time rise up, even if those other poles of authority that could arise are perhaps more benevolent at times, more intelligent in how they would handle things on an economic basis or in war or whatever it happens to be. And so you can have problems arising as the result of that. So yeah, long live cone theory, horseshoe theory. I would agree, oddly enough, with both the far left and the far right on this. Horseshoe theory is a pretty shitty way of looking at politics. It no longer has proper relevance. We need to begin to understand the world, I think, in a different way. Horseshoe theory doesn't do it a justice. It actually kneecaps those that would seek to argue against a fringe ideology anyway, or a violent ideology. In a way, it actually prevents them from doing that. Human beings have a tendency to form a lot of dichotomies and then take a side because it's sort of the black-white way of looking at the world as opposed to maybe a scale of gray continuum. Unfortunately...
This is my concern about his last video. Anyhow.
You need a dichotomous construct for people to understand things oftentimes.
You might need a diametrically opposed description. You need dichotomy. I'm not entirely sure about that. We might need more than one point of view to ensure a good description. That I could go with.
Horseshoe theory, thus, it coerces people in times of stress, oddly enough, between taking a side with communism or taking a side with maybe fascism or something like that. Along those lines, everyone else...
I could put this in artistic terms just to explain what I mean by that. If you have more than one point of view, for example, if I'm an artist and I'm drawing a life model or a picture of a still life or something, or maybe it's I remember learning this one in particular, but I had an art teacher once who told the class that I was part of, when you're drawing this particular object, it was a chair, you can go about it two different ways. You could draw the chair by drawing the shapes that you see of the different pieces of wood that make up the chair, or you could draw the chair by drawing the negative space where the wood isn't. The parts of the chair that you can see through, you draw those shapes, and then what is left over is the chair. There's two ways at least of describing the chair perfectly. And if you can combine the two of them, you'll have a really good picture.
Even if there are other technical polar groups that have different ideas that are actually highly divergent with those having at least the similarity of potentially abusiveness, it makes it almost impossible to actually debate them properly, because no matter which one you focus on, the other side will come down on you like a pile of bricks, or it will attempt to appropriate you into itself because it says, oh, this person's arguing against communism, therefore they're kind of on our side. We better talk to them about fascism, how great it is. Or you argued against fascism, that means you stand with us communists. And those two sides, because they are divergent, will seek ever to draw everything into them and away from everything else. And so it becomes problematic for a culture in the end stage when it becomes more authoritarian or more prone or more unstable and thus prone to it. It can actually cause the entire population to fall into chaos in which people are coerced into supporting ideologies in a military often sense or a revolutionary sense that they never would have supported under a time of less stress. Never would have supported them. I would strongly urge those that are part of those ideologies, if you choose to make people take those sides, it can cause problems, especially since if it is bipolar, if it's like communism versus fascism, one side ends up losing. How do you guarantee then that it's not your side that gets purged? That can be a problem. If you then, though, constrain things more, it's more difficult for any particular ideology to abuse you. Then it's simply an act of how do we constrain it properly and how do we make that constraint more stable over time as opposed to falling apart. Because if it's a weak constraint, it's not going to work. Even the U.S. Constitution, which is pretty good, obviously was not expansive enough. There were additional things that probably should have been added to it in the early days. It would have prevented like the slavery debate. It could have prevented the police state we have now, censorship, things like that.
The Civil War ensured that some of those additional constraints were applied to the document. I think that's what he might be saying.
Moralism. We could have had a U.S. history that was absent of prohibition or slavery and all of these things if things had been structured more. Great attempt. Great men led the attempt. But they fell short. They oddly enough, they weren't constrained enough in how they saw, I think, the resulting state and didn't quite comprehend. They understood that power corrupted and absolute power corrupted absolutely. But they didn't quite get...
The 8-year term limits on president in particular is a genius move, and it's 200 years ahead of its time.
How easy it was for you to move towards a situation where that corruption would take place. I think they thought that enlightened people would continue to rule the nation, and as long as you had such a meritocratic system, which additionally can be more libertarian or authoritarian, the same as any of these others, that wouldn't actually be the case forever. Like, you could have a person who ultimately is a fascist, but they're like, but it's voluntary fascism. We want corporate rule, but it must be benevolent and constrained. You could have a communist who comes along and says, well, yeah, I like the idea of a collective, but I wouldn't purge anyone who doesn't want to be part of it. It would be a
This is a benevolent fascist is a communist, are they not?
Oddly enough, a libertarian communist. There are people I've spoken to who have that ideology. Then, of course, you have the situation where some ideologies, because of people's dichotomous thinking, tend to inevitably lean more authoritarian or libertarian, or authoritarian versus classically liberal, or a free, at liberty, you could say. It's not really about libertarianism itself as an ideology at this point. You can get that. It's a very interesting thing to talk about. But I do reject horseshoe theory. Some people apparently, they think that I consider myself a liberalist or that I embrace horseshoe theory because like I was on Sargon's side when I was talking to Spencer. Which isn't exactly true. Like, I have differences with Sargon, too, but I wasn't on there to provide a counterpoint to Sargon. I was basically there to provide a counterpoint to Spencer. So that's why Millennial Woes ended up joining the call. And I did that in good faith, and had a great time, and it was friendly. It was polite. Well, my interactions, I think, were polite. I think maybe my fans would agree. Some other people interacting with each other, maybe it was a little bit less so, but at the very least, it was interesting. It was fun. Talking to people about politics is enjoyable. It's fun to debate. It's fun to have a reasonable discussion. It's also fun to have a very friendly chat. Like I'm going to be talking to Bunty King, rather, tomorrow. It's going to be fun. I think he's a funny dude. I've watched some of his videos. He's hilarious, is what I would say. So it's going to be great. I can't wait to get pressed by maybe the Peter Norways of the tech world. That's about all.
Oh, that's Sticks for today. But Sticks put out a whole bunch of different videos today. So there are links in the description of this video if you're interested in seeing any or all of these again. Or if you've never come across Sticks before, which I highly doubt if you've watched my channel before you have come across Sticks. Hey, I've got one other video to talk about. Here is an example of a video I did not expect to get
If anyone can help
reply to, but I got a reply not from my own work, but because I criticized this video of Google furries and wingless dragons. I'm going to go to a very specific point of the video because it got 5 replies and a thumb up from V himself, I think. Let's listen to this leading into about 12 minutes.
Actually promoting is the same philosophy that it is situationally inappropriate. For instance, debating a point may be fine if...
I'm going to actually take a quick break before I sit down and do this. So I'm going to stick some music on here. We were up about 5 minutes, I think. Ooh. Here we go. Won't be long. Thinking back over what was written here in the chat. Lord of the Flies, man. Yeah, Lord of the Flies is an interesting story. I agree.
In one context, but
is there no order in Lord of the Flies? Do you think there's no rulers there? The rulers are the group. It's mob rule. Mob rule isn't necessarily anarchy. It's a tyrannous mob. They have order. How to put it? They have rules, but the rules are not necessarily written down, and they're not necessarily fair. So
totally inappropriate in a different context. Okay, so what this guy is actually promoting is the same philosophy that the Nazis used to have. Honestly,
what this guy is promoting is the same philosophy the Nazis used to have. 1130 and onward. Let's listen to this.
I think Hitler would have made a very fine employee at Google. Is the philosophy of subjectivism.
Oh, the philosophy of subjectivism. Interesting.
Is the idea that since humans are emotional creatures, there is no reason to try and find the truth or reality or facts. Simply
He presents a very strange version of subjectivism.
Objective of a statement is what matters. Today, a statement...
Not necessarily.
Might be true. Tomorrow it may be false. Who the fuck knows? As long as people feel good when we say it. As long as the emotions are pleasing, everything is well. This way of...
It makes me cringe listening to this. I got to 12 minutes. And I said, while I generally agree with your representation of subjectivism, I do think you've missed at least one key element of the position which tends to make it desirable. Allow me to demonstrate. Assertions, at least in English, and it might be true in other languages, I'm pretty sure it is, depend upon agreement with respect to the so-called law of identity. Thus, the word is comes into existence. And this is where subjective opinion operates upon meaning. When you make an assertion about what something is, this is a mug and this is a pack of cigarettes, for example. The law of identity is what makes these assertions true for a large number of people, this so-called law of identity. And if this law is not objective, what is it? If it's a subjective thing that allows me to call this a mug and nothing else but a mug, then I shouldn't pretend that I'm being objective when I call it a mug. The word is comes into existence, and this is where subjective opinion operates upon meaning. When we make a positive identity statement. Some assertions are contentious. This person says it is this, another one says it is that. Others who observe the interactions begin to suspect it would be better to add some form of unique identifier to the description, which includes the person or group making the assertion. Therefore, it is my view that such and such is this. However, is there much or any reason to hold to this metadata? The metadata, this is my opinion, or this is my idea of what is true. The best argument I would make for it is that it would be to show that it puts the value of the overall statement, the truth value, into a better perspective for general understanding. The real trick is to avoid needless ad hominems. Continue listening.
Thinking was called romanticism. And again, it's something that the Nazis and even the communists used.
The Nazis and the communists use it. Thank you very much, V. Thank you.
Really makes you wonder when the people at a company like Google are partaking in this philosophy, isn't it? So he goes on and he talks about an example. Suppose you're attending someone's funeral. Everyone is emotional and several people give eulogies praising the deceased. Suppose that one of the speakers mentioned how great a parent the person was, and suppose you know for a fact 100% demonstrable that this is not correct. What would the reaction be if you got up and said, wait a second, that's not quite true? In this particular situation in 2012, there weren't really a great parent. It's highly likely that the reaction of the audience will be independent of the correctness of your statement. Everyone would be upset. Because obviously diversity is now compared to a funeral. I guess the author is trying to find like the most extreme example, that of a funeral, in order to explain why feelings are more important than facts.
It's generally understood to be taboo to speak ill of the dead. Another way of putting the same statement. Is that true or not? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm merely saying that there is a cultural taboo against speaking ill of the recently deceased, sometimes the long deceased. I don't know why that it should be that way, but that's generally taboo.
But even by his example, you can see why his ideology is retarded. The reason people don't speak out at funerals is because nothing that's said about the dead person is going to affect them. Doesn't matter if he's the worst parent ever, and people are saying this, it's not going to affect you. The guy is dead, he's going to get buried soon, and all you have to do is just shut up, bear through the funeral, and that's it. However,
this is where the next comment I'm going to leave him comes from.
If it affects you, then things change. And I know that the thing that changes people the most are indeed funerals.
And I know the thing that changes the people the most are indeed funerals.
Because I have been a lawyer in training.
Because I have been a lawyer in training, says V.
And I have been in courts, and I have seen how the inheritance completely destroys families.
You know what? I think he's probably telling the truth here. That is something which happens really often. In the same sense that you're more likely to suffer from a violent crime to somebody who's closely related to you than from a total stranger.
Seen Brothers turn against other brothers. Brothers
Mm-hmm.
turn against mothers. Mothers turn against sons.
Against, I can't hardly believe this, but mothers against their own children. Can you even, like, that's wild, right? To think that it could even happen, but it can.
Fathers turning against daughters, and so on and so forth. Nothing is a bigger force at destroying families in this world than inheritances.
He might very well be correct about that. He might well be correct about the last part. I'll even offer you proof from your own admissions, Mr. Lawyer in Training. 1331 and onwards, I do believe you'll be adding to anecdotal evidence by saying that this is first-hand experiential knowledge. I'm not disproving what you said. I'm thanking you for being subjective but honest. V responded right away. I'm sure you could philosophy this, but I think anyone understands what I mean. Well, I'm not sure, actually. Romanticism using subjectivism thought that it would be no objective truth. 2 plus 2 is 4 is false. 2 plus 2 equals whatever we feel like it should equal given the context. So I'm going to get through this. It means there are also no morals, as they will always change depending on the situation. And so I reply, as I said above, I'm largely in agreement with everything you say, but also aware that subjectively speaking, you're allowing your point of view, perhaps a privileged one at that, to stand in as the authority rather than citing specific examples which could be objectively considered. I do not think you're untrustworthy. I'm glad that my philosophizing did get a response from you, though, if that's what it is. Is philosophizing, or am I analyzing semantically? I'm also well aware that mostly the subjectivity of opinions has been creating all manner of issues inside of organizations for precisely the wrong reasons, by hiding behind the subjectivity as personality and taking all criticisms of their opinions, of such opinions, personally. One other thought, but this time from a scientific point of view. When I describe an experiment, I should take into account all of the various pieces of apparatus that I am using, correct? Including those parts of the apparatus that will presumably measure things. Thus, I think it's better to include oneself as the thing doing the measurement, to allow for margin of error when making any is statement. There is a sideways path to this point of view. It's something called E prime. I'll pull up a link here that I've got included. And then a small quote from a Wikipedia article here. The E prime version communicates the writer's experience rather than his judgment, making it harder for the writer or reader to confuse opinions with fact. And then I reply to a specific thing that he said. Romanticism using subjectivism thought that there'd be no objective truth. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is false. 2 plus 2 equals whatever we feel like it should equal given the context. And so I replied to him, yes, but no. Subjectivism considers there is more than one way of describing either side. There is more than one way of describing either side of the equation. And what they specifically equal is being stated 3 times, if true in the form we've described. I could subjectively say that it equals 2 squared as well, depending on the context of the discussion. This may be a more pertinent answer than saying 4. If I need prime factors, I wouldn't answer with 4. I'd say this is 2 squared. I draw your attention to what I asked rhetorically in the top post. Is this what amounts to raw metadata really pertinent or not? It depends upon the context of the conversation, discussion, or the exchange, is the answer. Why should I allow his personal authority, his personal experience, to be the only experience that matters in determining the truth of what happens at funerals? Why should I? It's the definition of subjectivity, of subjectivism. Strangely, I caught V out on that one. E prime, short for English prime or English prime, sometimes denoted E prime or E prime, is the version of the English language that tries to exclude all forms of the verb to be. So, goodbye Hamlet in E prime, including all conjugations, contractions, and archaic forms. I am not a very good user of E prime. I use to be, I'm, and a bunch of other words all the time. Some scholars advocate using E prime as a device to clarify thinking and strengthen writing. For example, the sentence, "the film was good," could not be expressed under the rules for E prime. The speaker might instead say, "I liked the film," or "the film made me laugh," or the film has value with citations needed for all three, because I don't necessarily think that's the only way to interpret E prime. To say it in a way that doesn't necessarily sound positive or negative. The E prime versions communicate the writer's experience rather than the judgment, making it harder for the writer or reader to confuse opinion with fact. Kellogg and Borland describe misuse of the verb to be as creating a deity mode of speech, allowing even the most ignorant to transform their opinions magically into godlike pronouncements on the nature of things, which I kind of agree is true about the use of the word to be. The godlike nature of things. If we use the Bible, and the general Moses interpretation of God equals I am that I am, which is the verb to be in French, être. Je suis. So in a way, the E prime is a acknowledgement, subjectively speaking, that we could avoid the word that is used almost as the name of God when making identity statements. The thing which gives the authority here is this person's subjectivity. Well, it might be a questionable authority. Anything else to report upon? Nothing much. Well, I did have a bit of a win-win moment in a Red Letter Media video as well, but I don't necessarily need to get into that one today. I've been online for over an hour, huh? I'm going to stop for a moment and have a cigarette before I get back into whatever else I'm going to be doing tonight. I do have some more work to do with American Sniper. I've been picking away at the work that I've already got done there. One thing that I did do since I last streamed with us, like several days ago now, within 5 days, I changed around some of the mats that I was using. I'll show you today in the episode, in today's stream. But as I said, I'm going to take a quick break now that I've talked about this video. Now that V has been taken care of. So these guys, they sound a little bit like, how to put it, Emur Diodato. That's who they remind me of. Name of the band here, I'll put it in the description. Oh yeah, it's Global Funk. This is the audio stylings of Global Funk. Look for them on archive.org. Funk in the background. The funk in the background. Don't know if I like the funk better than the punk. Every now and again, though. I'll leave this up for a bit. Very Deodato. Very Deodato. You don't know what I mean by Emer Deodato. Here's the man. Brazilian Portuguese. A Brazilian pianist, composer, arranger, and record producer, primarily in jazz, who's been known for his eclectic melding of genres. First, the maternal family name is Deodato, and the second paternal name is Almeida. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're big Deodato fans. Keep making quick pops up over the chair to see if see what time of the night it is. Yet another change here. Trying to remember the name of this one. Is it 21st Century Suite or something? New Suite for a New Century? I can't remember. Some wild ass name. Hey, I got something else to show. This isn't work that I've done, but it's something which I came across and I found funny as hell when I saw it. I'll show you what I mean. CNN. I should look in my own. I should go to my own history to find this. It'd be faster, since I've already looked at it once or twice. And I've been watching Tracy Beans lately too. I've been trying to catch up with some of the Q-related issues via Tracy. But what am I looking for? CNN. No, I want to look through my own watch history. CNN. Self. Yeah, it's this one. It's this particular link. Via CNN's website. This is via CNN itself.
He is a former cop, lives in Brooklyn. He is teaching fellow Jews to defend themselves against these so-called
Published 3rd December 2013.
Attacks. Has a black belt, also in karate, and is known to fellow cops as Rambowitz. I want you to show us.
Nice cut there, CNN.
How, if you were walking along, let's say you're the random person who's targeted Don Lemon, and you have someone coming up from behind.
I love how he has his tie on, tied sloppy, the button undone, and the tie over to one side.
And this person's going to sucker punch you. How do you defend yourself? Can you show us?
Yes, the issue is being aware. When I walk down the street, even here, I was a police officer in Midtown for many years. I worked in
Listen to this guy do his patter, like follow the yellow lady, follow the red lady, follow the red lady.
South Bronx and
So
West
much
Bronx.
going on around.
Exactly. You have to, when I walk, I don't just walk straight. Many people are doing the wrong thing. They're tied up to their cell phones, to their iPods here. They're not focused. Many of them are getting hit by cars. They're tripping on the sidewalk and they're getting assaulted here because they're not focusing.
Being hit by cars, they're falling on the sidewalk, and they're being assaulted.
Paying attention. When you walk in the street, it's very much like you're driving a car. You should be focused on your surroundings.
So then what do you do? If you're walking and I...
Watch.
Well, you know, if a car does that to you, Don.
If I'm walking down the street, I don't just walk down the street oblivious to everything. Every so often, I do a turn to track my
Every so often, I look around, you know, play heads up.
field vision here on both sides.
That's what we do in the city.
You have to.
Right.
You have to. If you're walking by, you're attacking me from behind, let's say. And, you know, first of all, if you're attuned to people around you, as I'm walking,
Look at Don Lemon, man.
So which side? It doesn't matter?
I could redirect it. Watch what I did.
Look at Don.
I'm redirecting his force, and I'm throwing it.
Look at Don.
I'm going to continue.
I want to continue.
Slowly. These are all physics tricks.
Careful, this man has to be on television at 11.
If he punches you with the other hand, I can redirect and come around.
Careful, we paid a lot of money for him.
And I can keep spinning around and take it. Now I put him in a shoulder lock, where his shoulder will separate here if I put more pressure on. He'll be
Black
a very
belt
good
rabbi.
boy. Okay.
Black belt rabbi.
But I mean,
those are things
but
you
what
can
if
do.
you are? Seriously, what if you're walking? You don't see some. There's nothing. I mean,
Too many
nothing
people
is
are buried
foolproof.
in too many people are
Yeah,
buried in
Nothing
their
is
phones.
foolproof.
No, we're not saying this is guaranteed. You're getting an advantage. The
Okay.
advantage is to become aware. And the second thing is, if you do get hit, let's say throw a punch. Let's say I get hit in the face, punch slowly.
Yeah.
And I got hit. We're trained to absorb punch and to go with the flow and then come back in and take him down in some type of grappling. When you grapple, then you can take people down.
I'm going to start calling him Rabbi Kickbutt.
Thanks. Rabbi Kickbutt. Thanks, dude. Don Lemon, ladies and gentlemen. I got a whole bunch of these. Just watch this. This is hilarious.
The President of the United States will announce in just moments that the United States has the body of Osama bin Laden.
First.
Osama bin Laden has been killed, and that the United States is convinced that it has the body of Osama bin Laden.
It is convinced that it has the body of Osama bin Laden. It's the second time that he's verified this.
The mind of 9/11, the architect of Al Qaeda. We don't know the details. We don't know how this came about.
We don't know any of the details, but we are convinced, and we have confirmed that we definitely have we think we have the confirmation of the conviction of the body.
We are told now by several sources, administration sources and congressional sources, that the administration is now telling senior members of Congress and telling others that it believes it is convinced it now has the body of Osama bin Laden. He has been killed. We don't know the details of how that happened.
First 30 seconds, and he's been trying to convince us of the truth of this, no matter how hard he has no evidence whatsoever, but he's going to tell us we are convinced.
But that is the dramatic announcement the president will make, and Don, just think of what this means.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years since the 9/11 attacks.
Just think, 10 years later, we've been beating this dead horse, this vehicle which was going to transport all of our hopes and dreams into the new American century. This lemon, which hasn't refused to stop, even though we can't get it to run very far.
More than that, since Osama bin Laden has been the head of Al Qaeda, the president of the United States is to walk into the briefing room on a Sunday night and tell the nation that after all this waiting, all this heartache, all this search, all this failure,
All this heartache.
that the United States government is now convinced that it has the body of Osama bin Laden, and Osama bin Laden is dead.
If it wasn't for this news report in 2011, would he have ever been able to run for president again?
Almost 10 years after the 9/11 attack in Wolf Blitzer, we covered the White House for a long time together. You know just what this means. You know what a figure Osama bin Laden has become.
Yeah. I hear you, Hilljack. I'm just getting into these couple of funny CNN clips here.
A nefarious figure around the world, not just the United States. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, about to walk into the United States briefing room and say that the United States is now certain.
It's convinced, without any evidence.
Osama bin Laden has been killed, and his body has been identified.
And I must say, John, that the top officials of the White House are now briefing the top leadership.
Pause, just cut it off. Oh man. Quit giggling. This was a funny one, but yeah. Pierce with Alex Jones. CNN laughing it up over. fake news compilation. Someone passed this one to me. This was not bad. I also saw another one. I don't know if I got it here. CNN has their own blooper reel. They published their own blooper reel. Oh, wow. There's a funny one. Maybe this will be the best last one.
NC says.
Because now, I mean, in the last 2 months, we've seen Cenk defending Brian Stelter.
Is that the media is wrong. So when I hear media talking about, well, we're going to announce it at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time that it's all over, you're wrong.
Let me take you behind the scenes about this. This is pretty important. The networks are not going to say it's all over. But the networks and the Associated Press will most likely say she's crossed the necessary threshold to become the nominee. It'll probably sound a lot like this. This clip is from 2008 when Barack Obama hit the magic number.
CNN can now project that Senator Barack Obama has enough delegates to secure the Democratic presidential nomination. Senator Barack Obama...
Funny, yeah, Barack's credit was trying to underwrite Hillary there, wasn't it?
Goes over the threshold, goes over 2,000...
Plenty to choose from. Oh, isn't there ever?
118 delegates. He will be the Democratic presidential nominee based on our projections of the delegate count right now.
June 3rd, 2008.
That's what you can expect to hear on Tuesday night.
Ah.
Clinton does get the necessary number of delegates. However, there'll be lots of caveats, lots of acknowledgments that if the superdelegates change their minds, maybe that title goes away from her.
Lots of caveats,
journalists
all right.
and commentators that side with Sanders say the media is part of the problem here. And one of them is Cenk Uygur, the host, CEO, and founder of the online news show.
And one of them is Cenk Uygur.
The Young Turks. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Why do you think it's wrong?
Where is Bo? Boy, you've got a good question there. I haven't even looked at Bo's Twitter for the last several days. Has he updated his Twitter since December? Looks like a no. Looks like a definite nothing. Nothing burger on Bo for the last several days. The last I tracked Bo, I thought he was in Switzerland maybe.
For the media to acknowledge the facts. The facts are the superdelegates are largely on Clinton's side, and they're probably not going to move based on the interviews we've done with them. Why is it wrong for the media to acknowledge that on Tuesday night?
Because they aren't facts at all.
Has he done any speaking engagements at all? Has Obama appeared anywhere since in this last week? Obama speeches 2018. Obama's best speech in 2018. Barack Obama, at Barack Obama, January 7th. No. That was a Twitter message that went his way, but it wasn't. Yeah, Obama evokes friggin' Nazi Germany. That's December. Barack Obama's tweets. But there weren't any tweets, not unless I'm blocked from reading them. Oh my. Oh my, here we go. Oh my, here we go. Set to speak February 23 at MIT. Look at that. Well, I have to say it, I don't think he's going to be there. Boston Globe, I think you're liars, but I'll believe it when it happens. will be in Boston next month to speak at Sports Analytics Conference hosted by MIT. At the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. We'll discuss his time in office in the next chapter of his life. Mount Washington what? Among the coldest places on the planet to be on. I believe that. I've been on the top of Mount Washington. So February 23, that's the first speech that I've heard announced for his new year. Where is Bo? Bo is hiding behind. Oh yeah, Bo is hiding behind Oprah. Are these all still within the week? Yeah, they are. So I don't know where Bo is.
So first, let's just acknowledge what are actual facts, that the superdelegates do not vote until the convention. In fact, if they're not at the convention, their votes won't get counted at all, which
but
is
the
almost never
superdelegates
said
are the
on
establishment.
television.
They're all establishment people, and they're all voting for Clinton. Only 46 for Sanders.
Now, Brian, you guys, and I mean CNN and all of the establishment press, totally tilted the playing field here from day one by...
What the fuck? What are you saying, Chick?
Counting those superdelegates.
Look at his
when
face.
In fact, you know the superdelegates do switch their...
Look how serious he looks. He's like the most serious little child you've ever seen.
Votes all the time. They switched it in 2008. Hillary Clinton had a 100 superdelegate lead, which completely vanished in 2008. So
was the media wrong in 2008?
From day one, which was absolutely
was the media wrong?
Incorrect. It was, in fact, journalistic malpractice. Why did you guys do that?
So you're saying more information is not a good thing. We should hide people from the reality about the superdelegates?
Oh, no. Brian, this is very important. If you say, hey, superdelegates are likely to vote this way, or they say they're voting this way, as an aside, that's perfectly fair. But if you count them in the official tally when you know they can and often do switch their votes and have not voted yet, that is simply incorrect. That is not a fact. That is the opposite of a fact.
But the Hillary delegates switched because Obama was going to win. In this case, we know the superdelegates are establishment figures, or former governors and people like that are clearly pro-Clinton. Nothing's going to happen that's going to change their mind.
Again, not true. So, Brian, you say nothing's going to happen.
What's going to happen? Tell me.
I can tell you exactly what could happen.
Are you wishing for an indictment?
Are for extraordinary. Hold on.
Are you wishing for an indictment?
They are for extraordinary.
Are you wishing for one? Stelter, you fucking disingenuous bastard. Stelter, as if he didn't know the indictment was narrowly averted in 2016.
Circumstances. You know what would be extraordinary? If one of the candidates were indicted. Of course. So you guys keep assuming there will be no indictment. And Brian, I hear you have reliable sources. So tell me, do you have...
I hear you have reliable sources, Brian. I hear he has a reliable donations too now. But
have any sources inside the FBI or the State Department that have already told you that she is not going to get indicted? Because that would be news.
I do not. I cover media, not the FBI.
Oh, look at this shit-eating grin.
But the indications at the moment are that she hasn't been interviewed by the FBI. I hear what you're saying about the indictment, but other than that...
She hasn't been interviewed by the FBI. Oh, right. They haven't done a whole hell of a lot of interviews with anyone they know that would know, right?
It seems to me you're misleading your audience, giving them more hope than they should actually have. So think about what's going to happen at 8 p.m. New Jersey's going to close.
No, that's not
true at all. And for the first time in the history of this country, frankly, this is really exciting to say. For the first time in the history of this country, we're going to have a female nominee of a major party.
Stelter, go to hell. Go to hell, Stelter. Go to hell. See, I say to Stelter, go to hell. It's not because I believe he's a devil. You're some devil, Stelter. No. I'm not there. But I still think that he should probably go to hell. He should probably go to hell, if only temporarily. if only for a short period of time, just to make sure it really becomes clear to him what he's been forcing down everyone else's throats. Stelter, you disingenuous bastard. So I've been looking through these CNN clips particularly. I'm looking particularly for examples, especially prior to 2013, of CNN's fake newsery, showing just how committed they are to the fake news ever since 2011, if not before. Which is what makes the whole. Well, let me show you what I mean. It certainly makes this whole. It's under stills, right? Yeah. Elements, and then funny, and then video. I went looking for these. The epic CNN blooper video. Is that the one that they did? Let me see here.
This is CNN.
Published by CNN, this one.
First, let's check in with Ed Turner at the assignment desk to see just what's coming up next.
No crime, don't get that off there!
To Irish television in Shannon, Ireland, and Irish television news coverage.
And we're going to get you a picture of the national weather scene in just a moment. Here it comes. It looks as... No, this is my first day. I suppose I'm lucky I'm still alive.
That's Moneyline for now. If court proceedings end early, be sure to watch our full version.
And if he is selected by the coach, he will compete in the 4x100 as well.
In the meantime, Michael Johnson's very real shot. Well, he worked around this camera.
Look behind us here.
Tougher sanctions to increase the pressure if necessary.
You know, you can get into it, you know what I'm saying? See, a lot of the things that I'm saying.
Russian police believe Chechen rebels. Grab the Dramamine, everyone. So they.
Oh, Ali, are you okay?
I'm back.
Okay.
You got me?
Yeah, CNN. If a fellow falls down like that, CNN calls it a blooper. Hillary Clinton does it. They never ever fucking talk about it.
Welcome back. We're going to ad-lib the... did I just say that? I was being told by my producer to ad-lib. There are think words and there are say words, Rick.
It's delivered with a remote control.
Oh! So let's get right to Lola's. Woo! Thank you.
Oh, well, recovering.
Eating the snacks.
We're back.
We're back on This American Morning, Thursday, the 13th of March, and more breaking news to tell you about. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, John. I hope that's just euthanized, yes or no?
Awkward silence there with two of them. Guess who was sleeping with who last night?
American Morning, Thursday, the 13th of March, and more breaking news to tell you about. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, John.
That's just genius.
I hope that's just euthanized, yes or no?
Well, I would think anesthetized.
You mean killed?
No, anesthetized. Euthanized would be killed.
Oh, okay, you're right. I know who likes chocolate. Our Zane Virgie
No, anesthetized. Euthanized would be killed.
loves chocolate. One of our main kids. Oh, nice melons behind you there.
Whoa! Whoa!
You can see it live on our You can see it live on our website. CNN.com. Oh, it's lovely. Fishing areas are threatened. There is a state of emergency declared in Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. Not quite sure what all that was.
This is the only time we've seen 5 major hurricanes in consecutive months. July. What's the next one, John? Help me out.
August.
August. Thank you.
Which, you know.
The weatherman.
The red X is never good.
The Northwest is where we're seeing most of the action across parts of, well, there's the Dow Jones, just to give you a market update.
He goes right into
Dow's
it.
down about 11 points here. I obviously loaded up the wrong computer. So we've got a couple of
Guess he was checking his morning insider trading before he decided to go to work.
hours in, I don't even know what's loaded up here.
What it was I was trying to show Chris, look how much mud is on here, and the next thing you know, oh dear.
Whoa, whoa, oh. This is a very funny film, a big funny cast. And that, my friends, is the end of the interview.
They want everybody who
Fuck you, CNN.
doesn't have a reason to be outside inside their homes. You heard from the mayor who said a number of people haven't left. That worries them, but at this point, if you haven't left, don't go out.
It's about 10%. It went down, dipped to about 9.7%. But for African Americans, it is more than 15%.
You see it change a little bit where it's not really snow, but rather it is some black ice, which at times can be a very slippery thing, let me tell you, as our photojournalist.
Did it just fall?
Now, all I can say is they should thank their lucky stars it wasn't Deppard 2. Sorry. That made me giggle every time I read it. He hasn't commented on this incident.
I might have some real fun with this part. I mean, I can giggle with the best of them, but this guy?
All right, sorry.
They approved a new labor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought we were going to commercial break. Hello.
I always see this sort of thing on YouTube, and you don't think...
Yeah, tell us all about it, Anderson.
Picnics and parades, beaches and barbecues, those are all the great ways that we want to spend the 4th of July, right? But will Lady Liberty be upstaged by Mother Nature?
Don't worry about Bruce.
Don't worry about it. See, I ignored it.
He's just excited.
I ignored it. See it down in the bottom? Just ignore it. There he is. Yeah.
The governor also said he would appoint an interim senator, but not to
Framing.
expect. Oh. Hello.
Framing.
Oh. No. There we go.
And the federal government.
Whoa. Okay, look who is trying to take over. Don't you have your own show?
I'm gonna fix you up like this stuff all over. I do, but you know, the chance to be with you, Don, I can't pass it up.
Merry Christmas. I'll see you later for the party.
Oh,
You
sorry.
He goes, yeah, he's on air, right?
He's Jeff Zucker. We better get to business. See ya. Thanks, boss.
All right. Sorry, all right.
The cable news network.
Wow. These guys are a barrel of fucking monkeys, man. Just a barrel. And I'm planning to make a few more jokes on their expense, if at all possible. So I've even got the Wolf and well, there's more than one Wolf clip too. But I've got the Wolf to Anderson, Don't Giggle. This one I need to watch careful.
Anderson Cooper 360, weeknights at 8 and 10.
I gotta watch this real careful.
Time now for the ridiculous, and tonight we offer the ridiculous tips to get in shape for summer. It's of course called Prancercise. Prancercise is described as a springy, rhythmic way of moving forward, similar to a horse's gait, and ideally
Hold on, Anderson. I'm sure we're all
real work going on here, huh?
all on the edge of our seats. We're waiting to hear your take on that Prancercise video, but I think that could wait until tomorrow, since today is...
Wolf gets the most obvious written scripts of any other anchor on fucking mainstream media. I can't think of anyone else who gets caught out more by the way he decides to deliver the script. Listen to this.
And I'm sure we're all on the edge of our seats. We're waiting to hear your take on that Prancercise video.
But
I think that could wait until tomorrow. Since today is your birthday, Anderson, I'm officially taking over the ridiculous. So you can just sit back and relax.
The ridiculous.
Relax, enjoy, let the viewers at home, they can see us side by side. They can decide, by the way, who's more of a dreamboat. Would that be you or me?
Phil Jack says, 2 spooks. 2 spooks of raisins, right? in a package of Kellogg's Raisin Bran. Holy shit. When they both put their glasses on, I laughed to kill myself. I honestly laughed that hard when this happened. Because here's Wolf with his glasses already
You
on.
can just sit back and relax, enjoy, let the viewers at home.
So he says, okay, sit back, relax. So he puts his glasses on to relax.
They can see us side by side. They can decide, by the way, who's more of a dreamboat. Would that be you or...
Two spooks, right? Ooh. Mr. CIA on the cider, for sure.
Me. And I thought...
I can't run down what Wolf's connection would be.
I'd like to take this opportunity.
At least not yet, but he's been in there for a long time. He's the company man when it comes to that particular brand.
Anderson,
Oh yes, yeah. I get your meaning. I entirely get your meaning of the term there. Term from Spycraft. Not how would I put it? Suburban jungle. Yes,
the occasion
exactly.
of your birthday to offer you some tips on aging gracefully.
Because it's his birthday. This is how they keep him in line, man.
As a news anchor, since, as you know, I have a few years, not many, but a few years on you. So here's the question. Should we get started?
You go right ahead, sir.
All right. You seem to have your workout program down, as anyone who has seen you in a T-shirt can attest. You don't.
It's a comedy roast without the benefit of having a roast master or a bunch of other funny guys to talk about.
Don't need any advice from me on that. Whatever you're doing, just keep it up. No background.
I got a good mind to try to overlay the bottom image with the top image rather than having them like above one another. Just put them on top of one another.
Check necessary.
Who could be in back? Who could be on top? Who gives a fuck?
At that gun show, by the way. Yeah. But there are a few areas in which I think I can be of some assistance. As you get older, Anderson, you're going to have to stop getting into fistfights. I personally was shocked. A lot of our viewers around the world, they were shocked to see this a few weeks ago on SNL, which I assume is
oh, right, because that's real.
It's a news program. Watch this.
Get ready for Anderson Cooper 360.
As you age, Anderson, you're going to have to learn that violence doesn't solve anything. Use your words, Anderson. There's one other area I'd like to address, and I'd like to address it right now, and that is your tendency, as you well know, to burst out laughing at certain types of words and ideas. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Let's just remind
we get a good idea what's on the go with his hairline here, too.
The viewers.
They saw an actual thespian actually...
A thespian?
Thespian. They should thank their lucky stars it wasn't Depardieu.
Yeah, only people that would know French would laugh at that. That's right, Anderson.
Sorry. All right. Sorry.
French jokes are gay, aren't they, Anderson?
By the way, a cup of Dung Fu Panda is going to cost you. But if you're the adventurous
it's going to cost you.
Type, or if you just like to splurge on crap, you...
That's crack, Anderson. It's only crack I splurge on. I only splurge on crack, Anderson. And then SMH.
Anderson, I got to tell you, that kind of behavior may fly in your 40s, but trust me, it's not going to cut it in your 60s. You have to keep it together. You have to learn how to keep it together. Meditation, maybe. Maybe find a way to center yourself. Repeat a mantra in your head. For instance, and I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I calm myself often.
I have a connection to the ethereal realm from time to time. I got a funny idea. I know what Anderson's mantra might be. Keep it together over and over and over and over again.
By repeating over and over and over again, you're in the Situation Room. But that may not work for you because it has the word urine in it. And I hope you'll find, as you mature, that you'll be able to keep a straight face.
A urine joke. Uncomfortable urine joke. Wow. Insider urine joke. That's like, what's the chances?
When saying nearly anything. So watch how a master does it. The pussy willows blowing in the wind on the shores of Lake Titicaca are almost as magical as Uranus.
September 20th, 2012.
Shores of Lake Titicaca in the wind on the shores of Lake Titicaca are almost
While hiding from Toronto.
as magical as
Toronto. Tornado. Sorry.
Uranus. I make it look easy, don't I, Anderson? That's the way you do it. Yes, you mature, you learn how to deal with these things. But let me just point out, you're doing just fine. So tonight, on behalf of everyone...
Hey, hang on a second. There was a cut there?
Do it, yes. You mature, you learn how to deal with these things. But let me just point out...
The ticker didn't stop.
You're doing just fine. So tonight, on behalf of everyone at 360, we want to thank you for the work you do every day, for your dedication, your leadership, and for letting us all get the last laugh with you on the ridiculous. Anderson?
Wolf, thank you very much. And to everybody on
wow.
the show, thank you very much. And to all the viewers, thanks for watching, and appreciate all the nice birthday wishes I've been getting all throughout the day.
How can I jokes?
I do feel old, though, Wolf. I feel old. 46. I don't know. It's getting up there.
Moving up in the world. You know, 46 is the what? The new 36? Is that what they're saying?
That's what people who are 46 say, but I don't think that's really probably true. Well,
you're doing fine. You look great. Can you put the glasses on just once?
Huh.
So
yes.
Our viewers can see you and me together. And we'll get a little, on Twitter, we'll get a little thing.
It is the same shapes on their fucking lenses now. Look at the head cock there at the end.
And we'll get a little, on Twitter, we'll get a little thing going.
Nice, Anderson, yeah.
Whose glasses look better, yours or mine?
There we go. Well, thank you so much.
Profile shot from him, and we'd be able to catch him with facial recognition, that fucker.
Appreciate it.
I gotta look for another one here. This is a difficult one for me to watch. I've been trying to sit through a long video here. Here's one from 2011. This is a shorter one.
It seems like it's quite a sizable jolt, Wolf.
Yeah.
This struck me as really funny. This has no explanation whatsoever.
It was sizable, 5.9, almost 6.0. That's a significant earthquake, about 8.
The date, August 23rd, 2011.
80 or 90 miles outside of Washington.
Look at the NASDAQ numbers.
Actually closer to Richmond, Virginia.
CNN Politics, he's reporting on an earthquake. He's using a telephone with from a landline.
But we felt it here. We're up on Capitol Hill in our building, CNN Washington, D.C. Bureau, and I was on the eighth floor, and all of a sudden it just started slowly. You felt the ground, the floor moving a little.
Someone using a device right back here.
A little bit. The desk started to shake a little bit, but then you could really feel the pounding, and there was a real jolt, and I'm guessing it landed for 20 or 30 seconds.
Listen again.
Slowly, you felt the ground, the floor moving a little bit. The desk started to shake a little bit, but then you could really feel the pounding, and there was a real jolt, and I'm guessing it landed for 20 or 30 seconds.
It landed? L-A-N-D-E-D. It lasted is what he meant. Surely the fuck he meant last.
Seconds. But then you could really feel the pounding, and there was a real jolt, and I'm guessing it landed for 20 or 30 seconds.
It landed. He said landed. I don't know why.
I immediately suspected once that happened that it was an earthquake, although originally I thought maybe there was some construction going on.
Maybe it was a really big vehicle.
On another floor, and that was the situation. But this is an earthquake. We haven't had one here in the Washington, D.C. area in a long time. And as you've been pointing out, Michael, it's been...
That's the only microphone that works? That has to be it. That has to be it. He hasn't got a lav mic for whatever reason. There's no other microphone working in the studio that he's in for whatever reason. This is what's tying him in to the sound system. It has to be.
Felt all over the eastern seaboard up to New York, Ohio, obviously in Virginia where the epicenter is. So it's a significant earthquake, and I suspect there's going to be significant damage, although we have no reports or injuries or damage right now. But I'm sure that that will unfold in the coming hours. We'll get a full sense of what has happened. But we felt it. We felt it dramatically here in Washington, D.C. There's no doubt about that.
Cell phones and teleprompter down. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm saying. There's something weird about that whole, because he says landed, and I'm not sure what trips him up. Is it the teleprompter? Is it because he's using something that he's not used to using because he's still eyes locked on camera? It has to be close to the camera if it's a cue card or a teleprompter. I don't know what. Cell phones might be down, but there's a guy right behind him working a fucking device. So is he tying through a Wi-Fi, or is he not using a cell phone? Or BlackBerry or some shit. That one's funny. I'll get back to that one. Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper 360, weeknights at 8 and 10 on CNN.
So you moved in about a year ago.
Yeah.
You'd seen Ariel Castro around, right?
This is a weird one.
When I moved there, only because he was my neighbor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What was he like?
Cool. He wasn't no freak of nature. He was like me and you, because he talked about the same things you talk about.
Right.
He talked about you know what I mean? You know, regular stuff, bro.
So yesterday, what happened?
Yeah, you're going to love this. I'm going to tell it all. Around 3 o'clock, I was on my porch, and the mailman put his mail in my mail. So I looked at it and was like, I got to get Ariel his mail when he come home. A couple minutes later, he pulled up. He checked the mailbox, grabbed his mail. Before he went in the house, I said, Ariel, here go your mail. And we just had the same conversation when I handed him the mail. He said, they can't get it right. I said, nope, damn postal service. That's it. He left. I jumped on my bike, went to McDonald's, came back home. I'm in my house, but I'm in the living room, and I'm right by the front door, because I'm looking out the front door. And man, this girl screamed like a car had hit a kid, which made me, stop eating. What the hell was that? That. So when I got up, I saw my neighbor across the street. He run across the street, and I'm like, I'm thinking, where are you going? Because ain't nobody next door, because I just saw Ariel leave. And I know ain't nobody over there. Heard that girl scream and saw him run across the street. And I went out.
No less than 2 camera angles. There's 3. Thank you very much. Just watch. The one we're on here now.
Ain't nobody next door.
He's going to reset for the 3rd shot.
Because I just saw Ariel leave. And I know ain't no.
So there's a reverse angle.
Nobody over there. Heard that girl scream
and the reset shot. So there's 2 cameramen.
Saw him run across the street, and I went outside and wondered what he was doing. And Amanda say, I'm stuck in here. Help get me out. So he either don't know English that well or panic. But he just looked at me and was like, he's a girl. And that's all he.
We talked about you.
He did. So here I come with my, half-eaten Big Mac. And I look and I say, well, what's up? And she's like, I've been trapped in here, and he won't let me out. It's me and my baby. I say, well, you ain't got to talk no more. Come on. And I'm trying to get the door open and can't, because he didn't torture chambered it some kind of way and locked it up, right? So I did what I had to do and kicked the bottom of it, the door, and she crawled out of it. She grabbed her baby, but threw me off. All right, so fine. I got some girl. She grabbed her baby.
Background. Can't avoid the camera.
But threw me off. All right, so fine. I got some girl and her kid.
And what did she look like? I mean, what was she wearing?
Jumpsuit. She had a white tank top on, rings on, mascara. She was well groomed. She didn't look like she was kidnapped. That's what I'm saying. That's what threw me off when she was like, I'm in here trapped. And I'm like, well, you don't look like kidnapped, so maybe you got a boyfriend problem. But I'm thinking, I know who lives here, and he's 50-something. You can't be the boyfriend problem. He can't be him. Maybe you're dating his son.
And you'd never seen her before?
Bro.
In the year that you'd been there?
Bro, listen, never. That woman didn't come out the house. The only kids that came out the house were 2 little girls. They played in the backyard. He had 2 dogs. My where I live, naturally, it's next door. My bedroom is upstairs, so when I can just hear kids playing, I know it's them. They do the same thing, play in the backyard for a couple hours, go back in the house. Same thing every day. The neighborhood knows them as his grandchildren. So it's no big deal. He got his grandkids over all the time. I thought.
Amanda Berry then, asked to call 911?
Mm-hmm. And I took her into my house. Now, I'm nervous as hell, so I'm fumbling with my phone. So I finally get it right. She can't wait, and I don't blame her. So what I do is tell her, go across the street and use their phone. Now, we both calling 911. Now, she get through.
They could have done that reverse angle thing with Cooper afterward. Could have been the same cameraman. They just took a few extra shots to cut it with. But, man.
And I get through. She deal with a moron. Me, too.
You said there were, what do you mean a moron?
Idiot.
I heard the 911 call for her.
Imbecile.
And the woman kept
Why
being
do you
like.
have that damn job?
The woman was like.
What was that?
And I get through. She deal with a moron. Me, too.
You said there were, what do you mean a moron?
Idiot.
I heard the 911 call for her.
Imbecile.
And the woman kept being
Why do you
like.
have that damn job?
The woman was like, oh, hang up and wait for the police.
Really? How about stay on and I'll talk to me until they get there?
Right. So you called 911. How
Sure
quickly
did.
did the police get there?
You know why they got there so fast? Because I said moron. Because I said, hey, Amanda Berry is right in front of me right now. He like, what she got on? And I told him, white tank top, blue sweatpants, nice tennis shoes, nice, ponytail. What else? Oh, right. She panicking, idiot. Put yourself in her shoes. I just said it. Amanda Berry, that don't ring no damn bells, you being a cop and all.
But when you first saw her and she said the name Amanda Berry, did it
didn't know. Because I forgot. Bro, this is Cleveland. Since they haven't found that girl,
right.
And I guess stopped looking for that girl, we figured that girl met her demise.
Right.
So Berry didn't register with me until I was on the phone like, wait a minute, I thought this girl was dead.
What does it feel like to have been living next to this for a year?
See, that's why now I'm having trouble sleep. See, up until yesterday, the only thing that kept me from losing sleep was the lack of money. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now that that's going on, and I could have done this last.
Awkward silences, I tell you, they're all over the place.
Not this hero stuff. Just do the right thing.
Do you feel like a hero?
No.
'Cause a lot of people
No, bro. I'm a Christian, an American, and I'm just like you. We bleed same blood, put our pants on the same way. It's just that you gotta put that being a coward, and I don't want to get nobody's business. You got to put that away for a minute.
Because you know how it is. There's a lot of people that turn the other way.
You got to have some cojones.
Keep walking down
bruh.
the street.
That's all it's about. It's about cojones on this planet.
Has the FBI said anything about a reward or anything? Because there was a reward for finding her and stuff.
I tell you what you do, give it to them. Because if folks been following this case since last night, and you've been following me since the last night, you know I got a job anyway.
This was happening at the exact same moment in time.
Just wouldn't pick it up. Paychecks. What that address say? That sad?
I don't have my glasses. I'm blind.
2203 Seymour. Where were some girls living? Right next door to this paycheck. So yeah, take that reward and give it to that little girl came out the house and she was crying. And I'm looking at her right now. I'm like, well, your mama trying to help you, girl. Shut up. I don't know, right? And she say, I want my daddy. And I said, well, who's her daddy? She said, Ariel.
She said that?
Yeah, I said, well, how's that possible? Because you wouldn't, if you got kidnapped, oh, he was having sex with you? Oh, Jesus Christ. That little girl is his. Now we want to hurt you.
You felt that?
Bro, this would be a different interview. I told you that. If we had known that, man, I'd be facing triple life.
Wow. I'm glad it turned out this way.
Interesting interview. I don't want to hear about Benghazi. This to the local, like the late one. what was I looking for it? This is an interesting one. Older.
Ben, first, you're safe, and tell us what happened today.
During the Libyan campaign.
Well, we were down near the town of Brega, a very important town where Libya has one of its largest oil refineries and natural gas export facilities.
If you didn't notice that in the top corner there, it says Benghazi.
Libya has one of its largest oil refineries and natural gas export facilities. There was a day-long battle between anti-Gaddafi forces and the Libyan army that had come into the town in the early morning hours of the morning. Now, we were outside of the town with a group of opposition fighters who were preparing to launch a counterattack against the forces inside of Brega when we saw a Libyan Air Force jet fly overhead. It first dropped a bomb outside of Brega, then came back, flew right over our heads, and dropped another bomb.
The title on CNN site is CNN bombs narrowly missed CNN crew in Libya. Narrowly missed. Ah, shit. Fuck. Oh, they always aim too high.
It wasn't more than about 100 feet from where we were standing. There were no injuries in this instance. Now, later in the day, Elliot, we were with a group of fighters and local residents who were celebrating the fact that they had been able to push the Libyan army forces out of the city when yet again a Libyan jet flew very low over our heads, dropped a bomb right next to where all these people were standing and celebrating. Fortunately, there was a line of cars that seemed to block the impact of that blast, although there were injuries. We saw men with stretchers running to the scene as we, of course, rushed out of the area because we were afraid the plane could have come around again and dropped yet another bomb.
Yet another bomb. This guy is going to be fun.
Well, you have a vantage point, you are reading tweets. I am not right now. But as I said, obviously, we have been in touch with all the interested parties. And it is a huge hypocrisy to present Russia's role, in particular humanitarian role in this particular case, as a guise for
Buddy recording it can't stop from chuckling.
Some military plans. You know, it's particularly amazing to hear it from a representative or the representatives of the Ukrainian government, which continues to bomb and shell its own cities and its own citizens. You know, we have heard from, I guess, Prime Minister of Ukraine.
Look at Buddy in the corner.
Some words about the need to send a humanitarian convoy from Kiev to the eastern part of the country. Maybe not a bad idea, but even...
Buddy in the corner having fucking connections listening. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Pierce Morgan with Alex Jones. I'm going to be really, really picky about that, but I'm not going to watch that tonight. Knockout game we already looked at. The raw video from CNN. Christoph Waltz at the second Oscars. He won 2 Oscars in a row for a Tarantino film.
Christopher, congratulations.
Thank you.
Your second Oscar. I've been acting 23 years and I've never won an Academy Award.
I did it at 38, so you...
Oh, I'm 41, but you're an incredible actor. In light of the subject matter of your film, are you excited about the possibility of a black pope? That's an actual thing. He's from Ghana.
Well, I have to tell you one thing. It would be an exciting thing. I am a very adamant and I don't know, an adamant non-racist. I don't care whether the whether the Pope is black or white or whatever color. If we are non-racists, then we have to stay non-racists all the way.
41, and then we'll go back to 263.
Over here, Christoph. Hello, Tanya
Hi.
Hart, American Urban Radio
Hi.
Networks. How are you? Congratulations.
CNN's live feed.
Okay, here you are, European guy. You have just won an Oscar for the highest grossing Western in history. How does that make you feel? Western?
I'm just an actor. I'm not an accountant. I love this movie not for being the highest grossing one. I love this movie because it's a fabulous, exciting piece of entertainment with a really deep message. So I'm glad that it's popular because this is what the box office reflects. But the money, sorry, I do something else.
We're going to 263 and then 165.
Hi, Christoph. Congratulations over here. And can you talk some more about why Quentin Tarantino brings out the best in you? What about Quentin that made you win another Oscar?
I said it just now, and I hope you don't mind my repeating it. Quentin writes poetry, and I like poetry.
165, and then we're going to end with 197.
Hi, Christoph. Congratulations. It's Emma from the BBC. Hi. I just wondered if you were shocked to win tonight, given such an open race.
I still am. Literally. That's why my answers are somewhat incoherent, but I don't care.
Did you prepare a speech?
So, well, I thought about what one could say in case, because, you know...
Jack, just say one fucking thing. Trying to get some decaf herbal tea tonight so I can go to sleep and still have some on weekdays, yeah. Like I say, if you got regular tea, water it down a little more or stretch out a single tea bag to more than 1 cup. Not only my mother, but various members of my family switched to hot water. They'd rather drink hot water now than anything. Because you avoid either the decaf problems or the stuff which makes tea good in the first place. Caffeine's one of them. Caffeine plus Tylenol works better for whatever reason, right? Or codeine. Caffeine is a necessary ingredient to help the uptake or reuptake, I guess.
As Seth MacFarlane said in the beginning, about 1 million people are watching. You don't want to be, you know, you're nominated. There is an off chance that you might have to, but it's also, you know, I didn't prepare.
The herbal stuff is not likely to be as acidic. Not likely to be. It all depends on what it is you're putting in there, right?
Pear speech.
But antioxidants, I think, must be acidic to some degree, or they're going to help act against, like they're going to be what stops oxidization. Did I get that right? Oxidization.
But I thought of something.
I'm ending with 197.
Hi, back here. During the filming of Django Unchained, when did you realize, or did you realize that there was something special about this film?
When I read the script for the first time, I realized that there was something special about this film. I know Quentin, and I...
Yeah, it might have had something to do with the whole, the Wagnerian bit, the Brunhilde.
I read the pages more or less as they came out of the printer. Page by page, I realized that something special is in the making.
We're going to do one more because I had a blind spot, so 29 right down here in front. Can you stand up so we can get you a mic?
Frank Fastner, Television Germany, congratulations. When those names were read, one of yours, of course, it took here for us like a teeny tiny eternity till they called your name. How did you feel that? And if you would explain...
Swallow a tablespoon of baking soda later. Yo, you gotta be careful with that too. Oh, hyperacidity. The body reacts badly to such this positive feedback, right?
That additionally, also in German, besides English, I would buy more tickets of Django and I would see more.
You know,
okay.
I have experience with this. We did that last time, and it didn't work. How it feels, I said that before. The list of names is, and I know that there is a terrible inflation about this word, but I mean it in the literal sense, awesome. It is, I am in awe of the people who are...
Yeah, to be in awe also means you have an awful feeling. It's You're going to be left holding the bag, so to speak.
Who were in my or are in my category. So the very fact that I am one of them would have been, would have meant the world, and that's why I keep mentioning them, because Robert De Niro, Alan Arkin are
physical
role models for
Good
me
stuff.
since I started in this profession.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm sorry about the stammering.
CNN, at least they cover that. Someone suggested this one to me.
Another thing that I found really interesting about this is,
Which is not CNN, but it's fake news.
demonization of George Soros. And so a lot of conservatives will attack their opponents by saying that they're funded by George Soros. We're accused of being funded by George Soros, which I think is hilarious because we kind of want to be, but we're not, right? So like if we were, it's not like something we'd hide. We'd like openly accept it and we'd be like, awesome, we got funding from George Soros. There's nothing wrong with that.
Anna. Turkey O Rose right there. What was the other one? Not the Bin Laden dead, already looked at. $2013, that is the top one. Where is Bo? You were asking about Bo earlier, right? 2013. Here's Bo in 2013.
It was a day that got off
According to CNN.
with a bang. Not that bang, the bangs on Michigan.
The bang. Oh my God. You wonder where the rumors come from? Moments like this.
Michelle Obama.
And the bangs. Let's not forget the bangs.
It was also a day of odd couples. Beyonce and Jay-Z rubbing shoulders with Newt Gingrich and Callista. Audio difficulties forced Beyonce to pull out her earpiece. But she still nailed the Star-Spangled Banner. The president, on the other hand, blew one little word as he took the oath.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of the President of the United States.
No stumbling by Sasha as she literally skipped and ran from place to place. Sasha gyrated. Malia danced as they waited for the festivities to begin. Sasha kept picking at and wiping something off her coat.
My God, what are we going to talk about every little fucking thing?
When the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir sang,
Inauguration quirks.
the president may or may not have wiped a tear from his face, but a second later he definitely winked. Singer Kelly Clarkson's rendition of My Country 'Tis of Thee got a one-word review from Senator Chuck Schumer. Wow. Of course, there were a few media flubs. That's Morgan Freeman, I think.
Bill Russell, I'm sorry.
The
freedom of every soul on earth.
Continued. I stopped, but it continued. Well, welcome back to our continuing coverage.
And boy, did it continue, from famous faces...
Hello! Hey, how are you all? Hi!
...to the unknown anti-abortion protester in a tree.
Carry on!
What about the baby?
Making important decisions, like whether or not to get an abortion, I always listen to Men in Trees.
When he finally climbed down a police ladder, the crowd cheered his arrest. There were plenty of solemn moments, for instance, when the president paused after making his last inaugural speech. Spent almost 30 seconds gazing back at the sea of spectators, but solemnity gave way to fist pumping and the kids taking...
He said he's not going to see that again. I guess he must have known back then, did Bo?
...kissing pictures of their parents. As for Michelle Obama's outfit, it was by American designer Tom Brown, and whether you like it or not, it could have been worse. Imagine these...
It could have been worse. Oh, that's a hell of a way to put it.
Other designs by... Brown, instead of the Obamas, it could have been the inauguration of the
Oh my God. Bo would look pretty good in that.
Monsters. Jeannie Mo, CNN, New York.
The smooching president. What about the babies? And that must have caused them a lot of issues all the same. Buddy up in the tree. Playing it catch-22 style. The knockout game. Pierce, no expedited. Yeah. Kathy Griffin on New Year's Eve. I think that's 09, yeah.
He did say that he's one of the greatest performers, one of the top 10.
Did he say he could rap like a like there was like a Shaq moment? Sorry, go to Brock.
No. You can continue.
I really am.
I was confused by the
how many
dinner in the
times did you-
sky, and then it was like I shot up some woman
It looked like Gina from the Real Housewives of Orange County. It wasn't.
It absolutely looked like one of the Real Housewives of Orange
County. The Kool-Aid.
It's a little sad. I mean, I've watched the Real Housewives of Orange County. It's sad you know their names.
I know their names.
Yeah, I knew the names of the Atlanta ones. I have yet to learn their names.
Facebook in the bottom corner rather than Twitter.
Host the reunion for Bad Girls Club.
That would be.
Are you down in the
Didn't
gutter there?
Star Jones do that already?
Yeah. I might have scooped her.
Honey.
What? That's a big
Here it
thing
goes.
for me. What are you laughing at? You're outside the freezing cold for your 12th hour. Tom, stop it.
Yeah.
Where is everyone here
Well, Star
mocking
Jones
me?
not available, so they asked you?
Yeah, she's booked.
No.
She's very busy.
We're going to take a short break. No, we'll take a short break. I'll go to Bourbon Street.
Up! You know what? Screw you. I'm working.
I'll be right back.
Why don't you get a job, buddy? You know what? I don't go to your job.
Why don't you get a job, buddy?
I'm gonna knock the dicks out of your mouth.
Yeah. And knock the dicks out of your mouth. Oh, okay. Thanks, Kathy.
Well, let's go to London right now in a jewelry heist that seems ripped from a Hollywood movie. Police there are trying to recover an estimated $300 million worth of gems and cash stolen from a safe deposit company over the Easter weekend. The thieves apparently rappelling down an elevator shaft before using a heavy-duty drill to bore holes into the vault. Once inside, they forced open as many as safety deposit boxes.
As many as safety deposit boxes. Okay. This one here I call the 3 Mile Lemon.
We know why it happened. It happened because
3 Mile Lemon, this is the best ever. This is the best I've seen in years.
they thought that they could get information from the Russians.
I got to get Ben in. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, look, and I want to say this because I think that this is, what Bakari just said there, I think sums up the election a year ago perfectly. There are a lot of people that feel like that there was special treatment that was given to people that worked for Barack Obama on things that they did that they would have been indicted for if they were Republicans. For example, when you clearly have top secret information on a laptop that you have on a server in the basement of your house, and then you send those top secret classified documents to people that aren't even cleared to see them, and then you forward them to your husband, who, by the way, is in jail by the name of Anthony Weiner. If that was a
Ben,
Republican,
what does that have to do with what we're talking
they
about?
would have been indicted.
What does this have to do with anything?
Let me
Ben, what are you
finish,
talking
because
about? The
I hate when you
FBI
say
already
this is what you do
investigated
every
that.
time.
There have been a
This
million
is what you
theories
do
on
every
it.
time.
It's
Let me
water.
finish.
If you'd put him in an arm lock, he probably would have gone along with it. At least he can get, rubbing a little bit.
To the bridge, but why? No.
3 Mile Lemon.
No.
Bam.
No. We'll be right back. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. What was that? What was that at the
We'll be
end
right
there?
back. We'll be right back.
Yeah, look at that. It's a troll grin, I think.
Back now with my panel. So, Ben, if you
my panel,
you're not going to hijack the panel and talk about things that are relevant, if you then you can go on and talk about it. But I don't want to hear things about Listen, I don't want to hear about Benghazi. I don't want to hear about uranium. I don't want to hear about it. It has been litigated.
Of course, because it doesn't fit the narrative.
No, it doesn't. Listen.
No, but it's irrelevant
it's
now,
irrelevant.
Ben.
Here's two going now.
He lost.
It's irrelevant.
Again,
if you're going to talk about it,
I didn't say anything when Bakari was talking earlier, and you had no problem with anything he said because you agreed with it all, Don.
No, it's not because I agree with it all. It's because he's talking about things that had to do with now, not some bull from the past that has been litigated over and over and is not relevant anymore.
Litigated. It's been litigated, has it done?
Because every time but our emails.
Don,
but
clearly
uranium.
You don't like what I'm saying.
But no, it's not that I don't like what you're saying.
I didn't even say the word uranium.
It's not.
I never said anything about uranium.
That is where you're going to go back to. You go back to the same.
No, it's not. If you listen to somebody.
Ben gets hauled into the studio saying, I didn't even say uranium.
Instead of assuming what they're going to say, then you might learn something.
Get back on track, and let's talk about the New York Times interview that we were discussing instead of going back in time in a time machine and talking about something.
Oh, no, he's the crazy one. Talk about mockingbirds.
And someone who was not president anymore.
Why
so
are you
again,
so
he says that he believes, Tara, that
why doesn't he like plutonium or uranium?
he believes that he could be treated fairly and invest.
Getting back in a time machine. Yeah, a time machine. Speaking of time machine.
Here's a little clip from Saturday Night Live last night. Tina Fey.
Again with the Saturday Night Live.
Portraying Governor Sarah Palin. Now, just watch this because I'm going to explain. I haven't seen anything like this in a while. Listen to this.
Ultimately, what the bailout does is help those that are concerned about the health care reform that is needed to help shore up our economy, to help. It's got to be all about job creation, too.
All right, now that was Tina Fey, but here's the real Sarah Palin earlier in the week in the interview with Katie Couric.
Ultimately, what the bailout does is help those who are concerned about the health care reform that is needed to help shore up our economy, helping the... Oh, it's got to be all about job creation, too.
Right. That was the first time, John, I've ever heard the parody on Saturday Night Live actually use exactly what was said during the course of the week. It was a rough week.
So wouldn't that mean, Wolf, that parody is something you have trouble with when it comes to distinguishing these things? Is that true, Wolf?
For her this week.
Not sure if that's art imitating life or life imitating art there as you watch the show. Look, everyone...
Someone got potroed, yeah.
Inside the McCain campaign will tell you, Wolf, in a private conversation, they thought that interview was simply a disaster. They won't say that publicly, but they will tell you that privately.
Bunch of chuckle fucks. Oh... Speaking of time machine. Cool.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of Hurricane Irene. Sorry, it's...
Irene?
It's been a long day. I've been out here for about
5 hours. It's been a long day. I've been here in Florida for 5 hours. Lost count of the fucking lines already. Can't stay ahead of it. Can't stay ahead of it. This is one which is funny as hell.
His Flamer still driving, still driven at the age of 103, tooting around Coatesville, Pennsylvania, and you know when she's coming. No mistaking, her 79 two-tone Coupe de Ville. But I think the story here is she's 103, 104 next month, and she looks 25 years younger. Ms. Flamer, this shout-out's for you.
Nigga, 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 nigga. I'm 100% nigga. Nigga, 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 nigga.
Now, on the note of music, we aired some music just a few minutes ago, and obviously, for those of you that heard it, it was the wrong music.
No, it wasn't.
That aired, and we apologize for that. It was a terrible mistake, and we're working very hard to make up for it. Back after a quick break.
We'll be working very hard to make up for it. Yeah, I bet you will. Oh, man. Oh, man. So I don't know if I'll be able to use all of that clip or just a little bit of it. The last part of it will probably do. Just the even the apology only. I think maybe I will watch this Debates Alex Jones tonight and have it done. I watched this the first time it happened.
Anyone who's watched this show over the past few weeks knows I've taken a pretty strong stand on guns in America. It's not escaped the notice of supporters of gun rights, and it's led to a petition on the White House official website, no less. It's entitled, and I quote, "Deport British citizen Piers Morgan for attacking Second Amendment." Take a look. More than 104,000 people have signed it so far. And joining me now is one of the people behind the petition, Alex Jones. He's host of the Alex Jones Show. Welcome to you.
Piers, thanks for having me.
Why do you want to deport me?
Well, we did it as a way to bring attention to the fact that we have all of these foreigners and the Russian government, the official Chinese government. Mao said political power goes out of the barrel of a gun. He killed about 80 million people because he's the only guy that had the guns. So we did it to point out that this is globalism, and the mega banks that control the planet and brag that they've taken over, in Bloomberg, AP, Reuters, you name it, brag that they're going to get our guns as well. They've taken everybody's guns but the Swiss and the American people. And when they get our guns, they can have their world tyranny. While the government buys 1.6 billion bullets, armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, Predator drones, armed, now in U.S. skies, being used to arrest people in North Dakota. The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs. Take the women in India. Your piece earlier on CNN I was watching during Anderson Cooper's show didn't tell you that the women of India have signed giant...
He says tyrannical government, I agree. He says street thugs, I even kind of agree. But you know what? It's not street thugs that concern me. It's organized. It's the organized outsider that concerns me. It's not only tyrannical government, but an organized outside force other than street thugs.
Petitions to get firearms because the police can't and won't protect them. The answer is... Hey, wait a minute. I have FBI crime statistics that come out a year late, 2011. 20+% crime drop in the last 9 years. Real violent crime because more guns means less crime. Britain took the guns 15, 16 years ago, tripling of your overall violent crime. True, we have a higher gun violence level, but overall mugging, stabbings, deaths, those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns.
He's got a compelling point.
And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will come.
This is where he wins a lot of fans in the end, but I mean, he doesn't need to do this to win my intellectual argument. The point is easy to prove. Pierce is the one at a disadvantage.
Once again, if you try to take our firearms, doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out.
He's at a disadvantage, except he's the one who controls the platform access. So
out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand?
The outside, it could be BLM or Antifa. It could also be outside national forces. Why not, right? It could be any organized other force. It's not only... The Second Amendment is there to... The right to bear arms against anything. Could be an invasion as well as tyrannical government. Tyrannical government represented a problem to be remembered, though. It's given the proper place by putting it first in the list. To say street thugs next and street thugs as being the rest, that's everything else. It's more than street thugs. Definitely more than street thugs.
That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa.
Where does BLM and Antifa belong, right? Are they... BLM is more like street thugs in a sense. They're organized, but they're still only urban. They're still only like comprised from urban citizenry. Whereas Antifa might even be other. Could be someone other entirely. Could be communist. Could be European. Could be Canadian. Could be anybody. Obama's National Civilian Security Force says different than the Peace Corps. That's for goddamn sure.
Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that. Because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
Pearl Harbor also kept Japan off your soil. If you'll allow me to make an argument for that. Yamamoto himself knew that they would have had to take out those aircraft carriers before they would ever have been able to do anything like an invasion. Conduct a proper invasion would have meant a complete obliteration of the U.S. Navy at Pearl Harbor, and they knew they missed the flat tops. They went ahead and bombed what they could get at anyway, and it set the United States back maybe a year or two in the overall scheme of things. A year or two, which ended up being really important in terms of the development of the bomb, which ended it. It did keep, the Second Amendment did keep it off your soil. It would have been like a protection against it, though. They would never have gotten close to your soil as long as those aircraft carriers existed. That's part of the issue, I think. But the Second Amendment is a beautiful thing. In Canada, we understand it differently. There's an expectation here that we would be allowed access to the gun as a tool. If the gun itself that you're using as a tool, like as a hunting tool or something, happens to have come from a military background, well, that's your own good luck or your own past choices. You would have enlisted. You would have been decommissioned, but still took the gun with you. Like the right to take the gun with you goes with your decommissioning. So there's a preference to very specific types of firearm, and when they say long gun registry, they know exactly that it means that specific type. It's not only the shotguns; it's specifically the Lee Enfields or better. So the readiness and the ability of the population to be well enough armed to defend. And quite honestly, most defenses are going to be conducted from positions of strength, prepared positions at the tops of hills and the like, where the community is.
You finished?
Yes, I am finished. You will not take my right. You go through background checks to get
Fuck you, Pierce.
guns. How about Prozac? You know the number. Oh, that's the big sponsor, isn't it? Or that whole class of drugs.
Let me ask you a question.
Pierce just took one in the cup there.
Gotta cut that off, don't you? Don't want to talk about the U.S. number one cause of death is suicide now because they give people suicide mass murder pills.
Calm down.
Your answer is give more money to the psychiatrists and psychologists to put more crazy people on drugs that make them kill people, Pierce.
Let's try and have a debate here.
Yeah.
Answer me this question.
I'm sick of the same old script here, bud.
It's fine, bud. How many gun murders were there in America last year? Do you know?
There were about 11,458 and about 7.
Someone said to me many, many years ago, Alex Jones is the kernel of golden truth in the middle of a huge pile of shit. And I laughed. I laughed because it's true. There is this 1% or less kernel of truth. And it's gold. It's pure fucking gold. But it's buried in a pile of shit half the time. More than half the time. Closer to 9/10 of the time than half the time. And the thing which I really like about him is that he's honest as fuck. If he makes a work out of his delivery, I can't. What I'm trying to say here is I don't fault Alex Jones for salting his mind, because at the end of the day, he's not salting faulty property. He's not selling me on bum property. Any of the products that he sells me, even that he advertises or helps promote, I'm not even arguing about those. Some of them I hear are good, some of them I hear aren't. It doesn't matter. What he salts is not bum property. It's information. He salts a mind where information matters.
74% of those were gang-related, gangbangers shooting each other.
The salt of the earth, in other words.
Get 3,500 to 4,000.
Okay,
how many people died from infections in hospitals? 197,000.
Let me just ask you a second.
That's
question.
right.
How many gun murders were there in Britain?
How many great white sharks?
No, how many
kill people every year, but they're scared to swim.
Right. How many gun murders were there in Britain?
A very low amount. I already went over those statistics.
Many? Do you know?
It was only a few hundred.
No. How many gun murders?
I actually did pull up the statistics. Here, let me pull them out right here. I figured you'd do that.
Gun murders in Britain last year.
UK violent crime, capital of Europe, London Telegraph. Here, let me give you more.
It's quite a simple question.
Well, that's the oldest.
You're a very loud man.
No, that's the oldest Perry Mason
You're very loud.
tactic to ask me some little factoid.
It's not a little factoid.
I already said earlier,
We're talking about
England has a lot lower gun crime rate because you took all the guns.
Let me try exactly my
point. But you've got hordes of people burning down cities and beating old women's brains out every day.
What a ridiculous
They arrest people in England if they defend themselves. That's on record. My God.
It actually is true what Alex Jones is saying there. There would have been a rule. How do I put this? The common law held it that if you were in your own property, in your house, and you happen to be armed and you if someone bursts into your house or breaks into your house to steal from your property, you would have been within your rights to shoot them in self-defense especially. But if you killed them, the chances of the murder charge now putting you in jail in Britain is really high. Even if you're defending your own property or your own life, to use lethal violence is not tolerated.
You've got a total police state. Everybody's fleeing that country because you've had to flee here, bud. And I want to say this right here. You think you're a tough guy? Have me back with a boxing ring in here, and I'll wear red, white, and blue, and you can wear your Jolly Roger.
Okay.
You know what?
Let's try again. How many gun murders were there?
Oh, you're going to ban your fist now?
In Britain last year.
How many chimpanzees can dance on the head of a pin? I already went over those statistics.
Do you know the answer?
No, I don't.
You said hundreds.
It's very low.
You said hundreds.
Yes.
It's actually 35.
Well, the point is you can...
Against 11,000. Do you understand the difference between 11,000
Yeah, England
and
wants
35?
to ban knives now because tens of thousands are getting stabbed.
But do you understand...
Just to show that Pierce is a bit of a prick. Population of UK. Oh, it's only a fifth. It's about a fifth or less of the size of the United States. It's a fifth, and the population density now and the actual size of the square mileage is really high. Strangely, the UK's violent crime rate has historically been really low. Has historically been super low. And when I say that, I mean it's been as low as what you would find in Japan. It's a really, really low per capita rate.
The knife doesn't kill people.
Do you understand?
The gun doesn't kill people.
Yes.
Listen, do you understand you're not going to pull on America's heartstrings? They know your script, okay? You're not going to get our guns. By the way, you guys always say, we just want to take the semi-autos, okay, and all this other stuff. When semi-autos aren't even, rifles aren't even used but in a fraction of the crimes, you can pull those numbers up, okay? No, hold on.
Let me ask you one question. Which weapon was predominantly used in the Aurora movie theatre shooting?
M4 AR-15 variants.
So it was a semi-automatic assault rifle.
Again.
Okay.
But statistically,
this is Pierce Morgan being really picky about what specific example he wants to try to counter with.
It's very, very low.
Do you agree?
This is the reason why Alex Jones wanted to call that fake, like a false flag too, because the chances of the gun being used in that manner is pretty low.
It was the single biggest shooting in the history of America in terms of people hit by a shooter. Do you know that?
No, I believe that there were others. There's been some other shootings with about over 30.
No, this was the single biggest mass shooting.
Well, listen, you're just going... No, there have been bombings of Wall Street.
Let me ask you a second question.
Are we going to... Listen, why can't the pilots have firearms? We trust them to fly the planes.
Alex, you've had a lot to say.
No, my point is the Second Amendment is sacrosanct, and you're not getting it.
Do you know which weapon was used in the Oregon shopping mall mass shooting recently?
I understand that people who are mentally ill on all the serotonin reuptake inhibitors, who play these shoot-'em-up games, want to go out and do this. Because there's criminals, I don't lose my rights, Pierce. Because there's criminals, I don't lose my rights.
Just answer the question.
Yeah.
Do you know what the weapon used was?
Listen, let me ask you a question.
No, answer.
I've got the FBI statistics that, listen, that these so-called semi-autos that you talk.
So I got to say, too, this is for a larger audience than merely Hilljack. If you think Sargon is wrong for asking a question in response to a question, then Alex Jones is wrong for doing the same thing.
Take a break. When we come back,
again, you're not going to get our guns.
When we come back, try and answer my question.
Yeah, all you're going
to try and answer my questions. Oh, Piers.
Here's how this is going to work, and it's entirely down to you. I'm going to ask you some questions in the spirit of a proper debate, and you've had a lot to say so far on the show, a lot of it aimed at me, which is fine. But I want you to try and answer the questions. It's a proper debate, okay? I'm not trying to trip you up.
No, it's not a debate. You're running the show. You bring in your victims up front.
Actually, no.
Look, you got your little note cards.
Yeah, okay.
I just gave you FBI statistics that violent crime and gun crime is down over 20%.
Alex, let me just ask you
And
this.
you want to go to little factoids.
No, they're not little
Anybody
factoids.
can pull those up. Listen.
Do you know what...
Do you have a bodyguard?
Alex.
Why do you have bodyguards?
I don't have a bodyguard.
Yeah, I've seen you on the news with them. Don't you want to protect your wife from hoodlums, or you want to call the police?
Let me ask you this question.
Why does Dianne Feinstein tell 60 Minutes that she plans to try to take Mr. and Mrs. America's guns? Have you seen that?
Over me.
You guys want to disarm all of America.
No, I don't.
Dianne Feinstein's bill does.
I don't.
Gun confiscation.
No, let me clarify for you. You don't seem to understand.
First you register, then you confiscate. It's always done the same.
Here's what the campaign on this
Well, here, give me your little cue cards and I'll answer your questions for you.
What was the weapon used at Sandy Hook?
I've already gone over that and already answered it for you.
We haven't talked about Sandy Hook.
No, again,
what was the weapon?
It's a 223 M4.
Right.
Again, but statistically, they're using very low percentage of shootings, period.
Are you seeing,
you guys,
seeing
people wouldn't go swimming because the movie Jaws, even though great white sharks kill 5 people a year. You're trying to scare people.
Let me say something.
There's no metal shark in the water.
The same type of weapon was used in the last 3 mass shootings.
And Hitler used semi-autos to kill people.
Why would you not?
So did Mao.
Why would you?
Why is the government arming to the teeth against us?
Alex, I don't.
What about Fast and Furious?
Alex,
why do our government ship guns into Mexico?
Alex.
Oh, Pierce took it right in the face.
Why would you not?
So did Mao.
Why would you?
Why is the government arming to the teeth against us?
Alex, I don't.
What about Fast and Furious?
Alex.
Ship guns into Mexico.
Alex.
To blame the Second Amendment?
Let's have a debate.
A false flag?
Alex.
To blame the Second Amendment?
I get accused.
Why'd they blow up Building 7 down the street here in New York?
I get accused when I get you guys on of talking over you, of being rude. I'm trying to be civil, right? You've got to try and answer some of the questions, right? Here's my issue for you. Why do people civilians need an AR-15 type assault rifle? Why do you
I already said statistically they're used in a very low amount of the crimes. That's an FBI fact.
They've been used in the last 3 mass shootings.
Yes.
Why do
I'll tell you why.
them?
Because they advertise it in the media. Anybody knows that if somebody jumps off the Empire State Building, they put cops up there the next day because copycats come to do it again. The media hypes and hypes and hypes.
No, that's not the question.
Don't just commit suicide.
Alex, why do people
Go commit suicide by killing a bunch of kids, and here's the gun to use because it's the one the U.S. Army uses.
Why do people need them?
They need them to protect us from the #1 killer in history. Government in the 20th century, university study out of Hawaii killed 292 million people. It's called democide. Google it, folks.
Do you believe everyone in America should everyone in America therefore have an AR-15 if they want one?
Statistically, where there's more guns, there's lower crime. The highest crime is in Bloomberg,
But you have the most
controlled
guns
areas.
of any of the 23 richest countries in the world. And you have
Well, America was born on guns and whiskey.
Right. But
it's true we're a violent society.
Right. So you
but
accept that America has the most
knives kill
and the
3
most
times
gun
more.
murders.
Have you seen the FBI numbers? Knives.
In Alberta, it is very common. So I am told. I can't say that I've ever noticed this with my own 2 eyes, but it is common to find the sign outside of a bar, no knives or other weapons. Knives, the first and biggest concern.
Bats, rocks, kill many times more.
Alex, let's talk about the guns.
It's not the rock. It's not the knife. When a mother chops her kids up with a cleaver because she's on serotonin.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
Why don't you want to get rid of the drugs? Because they're half your sponsors?
No, stick to the subject.
America's #1 cause of unnatural death now is suicide.
Alex,
not automobile accident, not cancer, not.
You
listen,
accuse me of attacking the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
I want to get people off pills that the insert says will make you commit suicide and kill people.
Alex, let's get about to the Second
I
Amendment.
want to blame the real culprit.
Alex.
Suicide pills.
Alex.
Mass murder pills.
Okay, let me ask you one question. Your belief, unless I'm wrong.
First time anybody's ever heard this, by the way.
Your belief, unless I'm wrong, is that under the Second Amendment, your real concern is that you will be overrun by a tyrannical regime, either from somewhere else.
Yeah,
or
highway
from your own government.
checkpoints. Look at Mexico. Total gun ban for the citizens. Highest crime rate in the world. 57,000 people dead the last 5 years. Total gun ban for the citizens.
But
Switzerland has the lowest crime rate in Europe. Your country has the highest.
Alex, we have 35 gun murders a year. You have 11,000.
You people get their brains. It's the higher.
But that's not the entirety of the violent crime, Piers. And how much is it underreported?
Crime rate.
Let me ask
violent crime is higher.
On this specific...
It's brains.
Alex,
it's people.
I'm trying to get inside your brains.
Piers,
It's
if
not
you punched
very
me right
easy.
now, it'd be not your fist, but your brain that did it.
Let me get inside your brain.
Okay.
Okay? I'm serious. You have a very, very big platform. You air, I think, on 63 networks.
No, that Wikipedia is like 10 years old. I'm on over 140 stations. XM.
Millions of Americans hear you.
Over 1.5 million visitors to Infowars.com
and I
today,
congratulate
where we have
you
the
on your
statistics
audience.
posted right now. Infowars.com.
Who do you believe was behind 9/11?
Oh, I absolutely know. I have the police on CNN.
Oh, Piers being a disingenuous prick there. Because he thinks it makes him look crazy.
And saying, get back, they're going to blow up 7. I have BBC reporting.
Who do you believe is behind
I have the proof.
Who's behind it, Piers? You guys are still banging on the drum as part of the media, like every year religiously, and going to do so for 20 years later. Like, you bought a lemon vehicle in 2001, and even though everyone knows this lemon vehicle is a fucking lemon, you're still throwing money into it and pretending that you're going to get back on the investment. We should give you more than a third of the book value when you sell us this bull.
I heard them on CBS Radio.
Who, Alex?
They announced they blew up the towers on CBS Radio.
Who do you believe?
New Yorkers all saw it and heard it.
Alex, who do you
They
believe?
blew up Building 7.
Alex, who do you believe was behind it? The American government?
Criminal elements of the military-industrial complex, the same ones that staged Gulf of Tonkin, the same ones that staged the mass shootings of Operation Gladio.
Right.
Ooh, the CIA don't like this
Alex,
now.
Do you mean that President Bush and his administration were behind 9/11?
I mean that even mainstream news reported that the
President Bush and his administration did not have to be behind 9/11 to be able to play along with 9/11. And the blue sky documents that the CIA published in the 1990s under Clinton
hijackers
or Bush Sr.
ordered to be allowed into the United States. Michael Springman, the head of the visa department, blew the whistle on that.
So the Bush administration was part of a conspiracy.
He should never let us tolerate
to murder
I can speak in this accent as well.
Yeah.
The
is that what you believe?
Hitler firebombed his own Reichstag, Pierce, to bring in martial law in Germany.
Good answer.
April 27th, 1933.
Piers going to have to deal with that one.
Governments have staged
What's he going to do? Call him a revisionist for telling the truth?
Attacks throughout history, or allowed terrorists to attack as a pretext to invade and enslave the populations. I probably own more than 50 firearms. Many of them have increased in value 2, 3, or even 4 times. I sleep very comfortably outside Austin, Texas, knowing that I can defend my family.
Perfect.
Okay. Alex Jones, this is
Infowars.com.
This is the man who wants to...
Perfect. He isn't even doing anything other than taking an accent which he supposedly shouldn't have, and Pierce gets offended by that.
Deport me from the country for wanting to get rid of
No, it's
assault
to
rifles,
point out you're a foreigner, a redcoat,
outrages.
here telling us what to do.
Whatever.
Go back to where they took the guns if you don't like it. The communists...
Cut him off. Oh, my God. Alex. Even as it's the New Century Suite we've been listening to, the jazz. I like Alex, even while I don't agree with him. That's what makes it fun. I find it very easy to want to listen and figure it out. And if he happens to salt the mine, he salts it. Does it make it not gold? You be the judge. See you later, Hilljack. Perhaps I'll catch you again later. I certainly hope so. Hey, I got some mail in the mailbag. It's for a mister. I won't say the mister's name. So if you don't already know, James. It'd be just the kind of thing we're looking for, said Turkey or Rose. Oh, I was very careful there. Look what I got inside of here. Well, I'll be darned. I'll be darned, he says. They look real comfy. Got a nice little tie up in them to keep them together. Look at that. They was darned together. One little, look at that. Warm pair of long socks. Hand knit by the look of it, and some really nice wool. I'll tie them up again for now. It's a little card in here too. I'll pop that open and have a peek. Yeah. Let's see what we got here. Sweet. So there be the Muzak. I like this this particular band. This global funk crowd. They have some interesting covers. They have some interesting original. So it's a little in between. And it's excellent for the purposes of background music, which I might well be needing in long, uncut blocks like that. Oh, what am I looking at here? Yeah, about 3.5 hours downrange. I'm gonna stop very briefly and make myself a meal. When I finish eating, I'm gonna come back, and when I get back here, it's back into the grind with Blender. My name's James PFP. This is the Banjocast. I also go by the name Pitchforks, Flaming Torches. That's in the top corner there. If you have anything to add to the proceedings today, you can leave it in a comment below, and please consider subscribing, telling others about what it is I do here. I'm all about the cross-pollination process. Let's hear more than one point of view on things. Like, mine is not the only one that matters. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.